Fine. I'll just mute myself. Gosh, so embarrassing. So embarrassing. Why am I embarrassed? Why do I get embarrassed when people are nice to me? Am I being waterboarded right now? No, why? That's like a night activity. It's morning for me. Like, why would you go waterboard in the morning? Sounds like it? Wait, because I was humming or because my mic is screwed up? If my mic is screwed up, I need to know that. Bring back arrow hums? No, arrow hums is not adorable. Okay, now I'm embarrassed. Because, like, I've been listening to a song. It's been in my brain recently. I've been listening to it a whole bunch. And so I was humming it because, like, melodies in my head. And I don't know. If I was more confident in my singing ability, I would just sing it. Like, it's that kind of mood, you know? It's that kind of feel. I think they mean your noise of indignation after you pointed the... Oh, got it. That makes sense. Arrow, I bet I can make you squeak without even trying. So, N, you have been here long enough, and you are consistent enough, like, chatter, that I recognize that is entirely you saying, like, you are easy to squeak, like, right? That is entirely you saying, I can make you laugh. You are very easy to squeak when you react to stuff. I understand that. However, based on some of the prior comments that I've had in recent videos, someone saying, I can make you squeak without even trying. That is something that I would take exception to. Are we doing an arrow squeak competition? No. What song, out of curiosity? It is Salt Wound Routine by 11 Vein featuring Yishi. It's a very edgy song. And it's one that I tweeted about the other day where I'm just like, I should not be saying just like me for real to this. Yeah, so well, first off, let's open on up MS Paint because I want to show off, or I want to write it down just for anyone who doesn't know. Ignore what you see on screen right now. So salt, or rather it's all lowercase, so salt wound routine featuring she by 11 Vein. I think it's 11 Vein. It's nice. I like it. It's not a nice song. It is actually a very sad song. However, I like it. It's in my brain. You're too brain rotted from this community. I didn't even consider that. Hi, some dude. Oh my gosh, no. I meant in a funny laugh. No, I know. No, so we're not doing an arrow squeak compilation, although I think that would be very funny. I think it would be very funny to have... I mean, like, everyone's done a try not to laugh competition. Now imagine me in a try not to squeak competition. Imagine me doing a whole stream where the thing is that everyone in chat is trying to make me squeak. You haven't seen a try not to laugh in like 5 years. People still do them. I'd say it's mostly in the reaction circuit, where a lot of people that are react channels will also do like a try not to laugh. I've also seen, not phrased the same way, but people will try not to laugh when they do like a meme comp, or they're like browsing Reddit or whatever, which that's not really my scene. That's not the kind of content I subscribe to or I want to produce. But like it still happens. That's some content only you can do. Exactly. I am uniquely qualified to be a try not to squeak channel. Like that. No, I'm making myself squeak. Revolutionary stuff happening in the stream. What do you mean? I can't believe I'm saying this, but this sounds like a fun stream tangent. We need to do this. Where's Stone? Wait. Rory, I literally invited you to a game. What is Vermintide if not just the Stone Age TTRPG, but with more Skaven? Yeah, so I started playing Vermintide 2 last night because, I don't know, I had it in my library and I was in the mood to pick up a new game because I beat Persona and I was just like, I haven't played a non-like Marvel Rivals or Balatro or StarCraft or Dawn of War game in ages. So I just want to play a new game. I picked up Vermintide. Actually, it's really fun. It is melee Left 4 Dead. I did not know that. Like, I knew it was like a horde shooter. I did not realize it was just melee Left 4 Dead. And that's kind of awesome. Like, it is so satisfying to like be my witch hunter and be like, Sigma, slay thee, heretic! And just like brain a ratling as its friend explodes next to it in a conflagration of fire where their three buddies have one arrow skewering all three of them. Left 4 Dead is already... Okay, Left 4 Dead can be melee. Left 4 Dead is a shooting game that has melee options. There is a reason that all of your melee weapons are secondaries. Yes, even the chainsaw is a secondary weapon. You are expected to have a primary gun. Brain or rattling? Gosh, I wish I was a rattling. Yeah. El Bozo, Skaven slave upon ye. That's not Stone Age, it's medieval. What's the difference? What's the difference between the Stone Age and medieval? It's all back when the dinosaurs were walking around. The Skaven are a parody of the Imperium that parallels are too much to be coincidental. I mean, the Imperium equals the Empire, right? That's my understanding. Because like Sigmar is your emperor figure, you have the fanatical devotion, you have humans doing human stuff. Also, I don't think it's fair to say Skaven are a parody of the 40k Imperium because Skaven came first, unless I'm misunderstanding. Fantasy came first, 40k was an offshoot, and I don't know if Skaven were released before the Imperium. I'm sorry to ask, what have you eaten today? Yes, I had some rice. Oh my gosh, we had... So my roommate and I, we made like little sushi sandwiches. I don't know what to call them. Does anyone know what it's called? Where like you have a piece of nori, put some rice on it, you then kind of like fold it over four corners. And it's like a little like sandwich that you have. And you eat them up. And so we had some leftover salmon. And some leftover like carrot and cucumber and oshinko. So my roommate was like, how about like I'm gonna make some more rice so that tomorrow I can take a poke bowl into work. And then I was like, that sounds like a great idea. And then I woke up this morning. First off, my roommate forgot their lunch, so they don't have a poke bowl. Also, I did not remember that we had fish. So I was like, we have all this rice. What can I put in the rice? I mean, like, I could make breaded chicken, but I don't want to. I have some like Chinese bacon I could cook up and put in it. If only I had something accessible and like leftovers from last night that I could put in this rice. And I just completely blanked on that. And it was only when my roommate texted me like, hey, I forgot my lunch. Can you put it in the fridge so it doesn't go bad? So the fish doesn't go bad. I'm like, oh, we have fish. I forgot. Actually, Conflagration of Blood sounds very cool. A Conflagration of Blood sounds like your standard like metal band from Eastern Europe. I'm not gonna lie. Like, that sounds like the direct translation of a metal band name. I do think it's neat how Slanesh doesn't exist in Vermintide since, well, the Eldar didn't mess stuff up. Really? Interesting. Because in Vermintide, so I've played like 3 missions. I don't know if people care about Vermintide. If people care about Vermintide, I could play it on stream. And there is Twitch integration. So if like either tomorrow or next week, y'all want to see Vermintide where I do like a solo run, I could hop in with AI and y'all could screw with me. Because I played like 3 missions I think literally what I did is I played Recruit to kind of get my feet wet. Then I went up to second difficulty 2, hard, right? Whatever it was. And then I tried Champion, and it was the mission where you have to go and get a bunch of black powder kegs. And in being on Champion, there were so many black powder kegs that just exploded because I was being attacked while I was carrying them, because on Champion there's a stupid amount of enemies, or at least like they don't die instantly. So I ended up losing that mission. Actually, that was my first loss, but I played a couple other missions. You enjoy Vermintide, you've been down to watch. If the people demand it, then oh well. Yeah, I'm currently trying to conscript some mutuals to play Vermintide, so maybe it'll end up being a stream thing. Maybe we'll play it off stream, and then it'll be really, really fun, and then we'll hop on stream with it. I also am looking to pick up Darktide, because for those of you who don't know, Darktide, 40k Darktide, is currently 75% off. Darktide is Vermintide, but in 40k. It is Left 4 Dead, but against Nurgle infected instead of zombies. It is apparently a very fun game. I think it's currently mixed on Steam for whatever reason. Not sure why. The NPC AI isn't that good. Yeah, they kind of suck. Conceptually, yes. In execution, the 40k Imperium makes the Fantasy Empire look sane. Oh yeah, the 40k Imperium makes everything look sane. Rory's killing me first thing on Saturday. Oh my gosh, or on Sunday. Need to get back to work on my own supplement. To give you an idea of how unhinged it is, CAIN is the reason Earth only has 7 continents. Nice. You know what? Take it one step further. CAIN is the reason Pangea is no longer around. I do appreciate. I'm very embarrassed. I'm very embarrassed that someone in chat had to ask, like, "Hey, have you eaten today?" Because if you weren't here on Wednesday, I revealed that I had not eaten beforehand, and then I think I ended up after stream waiting until like dinner to eat because I just wasn't in the mood to eat. I don't want to be one of those people that's like, "Oh, chat, take care of me," because ugh, gross. Gosh, the only time I played Left 4 Dead 2 years ago, I threw a magnet grenade or lure grenade or something in the second level while playing solo and the game crashed. So you threw a pipe bomb and then you crashed the game with that. I don't even play Darktide, but I'm excited for this Skitarii class. Yeah! Sounds like it's going to be fun. I don't plan on buying anything. Like, I'm not going to buy the Arbites. I don't plan on buying the Skitarii. Like, maybe, if there's like a bundle for all of the DLC or some of the DLC in addition to the main game, and it brings it from like $10 to like $13, I'd pick it up. But my plan is, actually I have a buddy who I was just like, "Yo, you ever play Darktide?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "It's on sale for 75% off. You want to play Darktide?" And he's like, "Sure." So we might play it later today. That's not very healthy. Did I hydrate too? I have hydrate right now. Oh, I was going to talk about CAIN today. Why am I talking 40k? Yeah. I just remembered. Sorry, I remember what the stream is about. So, if you don't know, I'm Arrow Rights. I'm a TTRPG VTuber. I talk TTRPGs, 40k, CAIN, storytelling, nonsense. I can't stay on topic. I'm sorry. It is my greatest vice is that I cannot stay on topic, and yet every single topic calls to me like a siren's call. Even those I do not wish to discuss, I will feel honor bound to pursue. I was like accidentally flirting with my player again earlier in the week. I just, like, speaking of siren's calls, like, I was accidentally flirting with my player. Oh no, my chat disconnected. We reconnected? Well, 40k is also setting for it with a lot of room for Homebrew. That is true. People brought up like, "Hey, when are we going to see like Arrow Rates, like 40k Homebrew?" And I'm like, how can you Homebrew 40k? It's a war game. And then they're like, no, for like RPGs and stuff. I'm like, what's a 1-syllable word for getting distracted? Dupe? Fool. No. Distracted? Lure? Divert to. No, not Arrow off track. Arrow is firmly on track. Arrow is very good about talking about TTRPGs. CAIN didn't break up Pangea, but they did sink Lemuria. Oh my gosh. Peak Arrow Live moment. Okay. It's not an Arrow Live unless I start talking about something, interrupt myself to start talking about something else. There's going to be a verb because I can't really say Arrow distracts. Arrow dumb. Arrow on tracks is more like Arrow derailed and killed 60 people. No! What's my opinion on Cyberpunk? As a setting, or sorry, as a genre, rockin'. As a setting, like Night City specifically, I think it's cool. For something like the TTRPG Cyberpunk Red, I do not know enough about it to comment. And then for like the 2077, I've heard great things about it, even though it had a terrible launch. Setting? Okay. The setting of like Night City and whatever, I think personally, it's a bit loud, overblown. Which is the point, right? They know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. You know, like having it be, oh, the evil mega corporations which rule over all of you literally look down on you. And also like privatized healthcare means that if you are injured, an ambulance will come by you, look at you, say you're not our client, and then leave you. Like that's all thematically coherent. It's just, to me, a little bit over the head, you know? It's a little on the nose. It's a little, like, to me, you can't really have subtle storytelling in Night City. Not to say you can't tell a good story in Night City. It just, Night City, by its very nature, pretty firmly restricts the flow of how a narrative can go. And I think, I personally... and maybe this is a thing. I personally think we need fewer stories in something like Night City that are, here's a rebel trying to break down the system, but the system's going to break them down first. So it's not a matter of can you take down Night City? It's a matter of can you make Night City remember you? I feel like we've gotten that in the original TTRPG. We have that in the remake of the TTRPG. We have that in Edge Runners. We have that in 2077. We have that in like every cyberpunk media is like play an Edge Runner, play a cyberpunk, play a Netrunner, play a like whatever archetype you want, a rocker, and try to build your legacy, which I suppose is just kind of like, that's like complaining about in D&D about fighting too many monsters, you know? So it might just be a personal preference thing. But I've also never played Cyberpunk. I've never played 2077. I've never played Red. I've never played the TTRPG. It may just be like a you feel it when you play it, you know? I also have a serious announcement. The Backwards movie was like a 5.5 out of 10 with some of the best set design I've ever seen. I've heard that apparently critics love it. It's very much part of it being punk. Well, yeah, so obviously Cyberpunk is punk. However, I think what would be very interesting is to see more stories from Cyberpunk from a corpo point of view. Not in a, oh, the corpos are actually misunderstood way, but like a, no, I'm like an entry-level white-collar worker who, like, my parents are middling executives, and I am stuck in this perpetual limbo of, like, middle management purgatory, where I will never be more or less than a middle manager, really no matter what I do. And what that means for the person and the psyche and society, and what happens if that sort of corpo middle manager befriends someone that is higher than them and or someone that is lower than them. Right? You like how those kind of workers are unionized and armed in the setting? Yeah, bully for them. So I mean, I just think that there is more room for storytelling that Cyberpunk refuses to explore, because in my experience, Cyberpunk is really obsessed with this idea of rebelling against the system and going down in a blaze of glory, which makes sense because that's what's cool and flashy. But I do think that like once you've seen that 5 times, you don't need to see it a 6th. Maybe you want to see it more than once. Maybe you want to see it more than twice. Maybe you want to see it more than 3 or 4 times. But I feel like once you hit like 5 times, 6 times, you don't need to see it a 7th time. You don't need to see it an 8th time. That's not subtext though. That's just a slight exaggeration of reality. Like how a lot of stories in the cyberpunk setting focus on hope in a hopeless environment. From my understanding, a lot of them don't. And like, again, this is someone that like doesn't really consume Night City content. And I'm saying Night City as opposed to cyberpunk because like there's the genre of cyberpunk and then there's the setting of cyberpunk. We are talking about the setting. So I'm going to refer to that as Night City, even though it's not just Night City, just for clarification. In my experience, they don't. Like, yeah, they show that there are good people. Yeah, they show that there are people who are trying their best. Yeah, they show that there are people who are nice and there are people who are kind. But like, it's kind of like just misery nonsense a lot of the time. And there's almost never a happy ending. And there's almost always this focus on beating down the characters for the sake of beating them down. Which again is like core to the setting. I'm not going to say stop doing that. What I'm going to say is I think that the realm in which that is being explored is artificially being narrowed. So Arrow writes Cyberpunk Corpo supplement. No. If you want that, I would direct you to like Seth Skorkowski. He has like shown up as an NPC in the Cyberpunk RPG. I'm sure he would be much better suited for something like that. That's very much the purview of the setting genre. Yeah. There are comics and stuff from the perspective of trauma teens and such. And that's the kind of stuff I want to explore, right? I would love a story from the perspective of someone on a trauma team. And not even one who's like, oh, they're the one good member. And even though this person doesn't have insurance, they still gave them a bandage. And then they have to deal with the ramifications of that. Like, no, I'm not even that. Like, literally a cold-hearted trauma team member and just kind of exploring the setting from a trauma team member dealing with the consequences of everyone either being a have or a have not. Like, I think that would be much more interesting than seeing yet another Edgerunner, and I keep using Edgerunner because like my main exposure to the cyberpunk setting was cyberpunk Edgerunners. But I understand that there's more than that. Yet another Johnny Silverhand trying to blow up Arasaka Tower, right? And like I understand that the futility is the point, but I feel like that futility can be explored from other angles. Arrow's so distracted they forgot to put... No, I put a Q&A up. The Q&A is literally up. I was referring to the small-scale Corpo story too. Okay, got it. Why'd you at me, N? I mean, that's just late-stage capitalism. I mean, it is late-stage capitalism. And, like, that's why I didn't say it's unrealistic. My issue with it is not, oh, this is unrealistic, this would never happen. My issue with it is, this is too on the nose. I feel like it's not subtle. And I feel like that restricts the amount of stories you can tell and the perspectives you can view it from. Like, ask me 10 years ago, and I would legitimately tell you, oh, a cyberpunk future like Night City, that would never happen. That's way too comically evil to ever happen in real life. Ask me now, and I would say, yeah, that looks like in the next couple years. You see a pinned message, but not the Q&A? Fine, I'll remove my ableist message. Just be warned. If someone's ableist, watch out. Around here, we're CAINist. We're very much in the worst. I mean, we're not in the worst parts, right? We are at the point where stuff can still be fixed. We are currently not at the point where stuff can go back to how they used to be. But that doesn't mean you can't fix it. In the same way that, like, if you break the handle off of a mug, and then you apply glue to the inside of the handle and you reattach it to your mug will now always be broken. And your mug will always have a fragile handle that you need to be careful of. But ultimately, it's still a functional mug. You still fixed it. It's just not how it used to be. And like, not to be too real about it, and I do want to like legitimately move off of this very quickly, because that's not what people are here for. But with Cyberpunk, or with society right now. We're at the point where a lot of stuff can be fixed, but we can't go back to how we used to be. The issue is that a lot of people are so focused on arguing about not only how it should be fixed, but also who should fix it and who should pay for that. That stuff is continuing to be broken further, and the more stuff breaks, the less stuff we can fix, right? It's very much a situation of, we are currently in a kitchen that has like 5 fires. And for about like the last like 50 years, we've been arguing about the stove fire while ignoring the oven fire, and also the fire in the cabinet, and also the fire in the dishwasher, and also the fire in the sink. Right? Well, I'm keeping it simple, but the point is that we have a lot of fires that societally and even globally, we are just arguing about one of them. And then anytime anyone brings up another one, we just start arguing with the other one and forget about the first one. We have no object permanence when it comes to solving problems. And really, like, I don't know if this is the right solution. I am of the take, and I would love for economists and scientists and analysts to tell me I'm wrong. I feel like what we have to do is we just kind of got to like commit to one and let the other fires burn, and then commit to another one and let the other fires burn. Like, we keep on throwing like a single cup of water on every single fire, instead of getting the fire extinguisher. And if we leave to go get the fire extinguisher, stuff is going to get burned. However, we're never going to solve this unless we get the fire extinguisher. So the longer we let it burn and just throw 1 cup of water on it every couple years, the worse it gets anyway. And it's either, do we want everything to get ruined in 20 years, or do we want most things to get fixed and a couple things to be irreparably damaged in 5 years? Right? I don't know if that's the right solution. And obviously, what gets focused on first, what is the most important issue, that's all super, like, over my head. I'm not qualified to talk about that. I'm not even going to pretend to talk about that. But I do feel like there's a constant discourse around this because it benefits people who are benefiting from the fires. They're so cold-hearted that they don't have any heat regulation. Therefore, they need the world to be on fire just to feel something. They want the fires to keep burning. So, we didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world has been turning. All right, that's my ramble. That's my rant. Also, the corporos won't let the average guy access cool stuff like mantis blades to keep it for themselves. Yeah! Which, okay. Anyone know Cyberpunk? What is a really, like, mid-tier item? What's a really mid-tier item that, like, in 2077 or in Cyberpunk Red is, like, cool when you make your character, but, like, after a couple levels is really kind of lame? I mean, yeah, just a gun. Or something, like, unique to Cyberpunk, ideally. But, like, a gun, maybe, like, a gun, like, implanted into your palm that you can have, like, a wrist-mounted gun to fire at people. Gorilla arms. Gorilla arms are something where it's just like, hey, this is cool that you can have, but also it's like not special. It's not unique. You kind of lose the magic of it. It ends up being just a mechanical thing later on. Imagine a game or manga or show or whatever, where in Cyberpunk, you are that like kind of middle manager corpo stuck in that like purgatory state, and someone breaks into your office and they have gorilla arms. And maybe you have, like, I don't know, a Taekwondo chip installed in your brain so you know Taekwondo. That's not going to help against gorilla arms. They're going to punch you so hard that your front becomes your back. You gotta run, bro. And, like, maybe you have a gun somewhere in the office, but it's probably locked behind, like, a $500 safe that, or like a $500 keypad that you can only access if you're like Delta Green level clearance or higher, right? The Sandevistan is the equivalent of just +2, yeah. In 2077 and Edge Runners. Yeah, so I've heard that the Sandevistan is way cooler in Edge Runners than anything else. Mantis blades with your arms, yeah. So like, Imagine a story from Cyberpunk where you're not the cool punk, you're not chroming up, you're not going to like Mad Docs and whatever. You're just like a regular person who probably knows how sucky the world is. You're turning a blind eye to it because it's more convenient for you. You don't feel like you have any other options, and so you are horrified when someone has blades spring out of their forearms, or their arms are gorilla arms, or they have a eye that like bursts out of their skull and turns into a grenade that follows you and like scampers along the floor after you and then explodes. Like whatever the weirdo cool stuff that like Cyberpunk has. Let it be weirdo and cool by viewing it through the lens of what is normalcy in that setting. And obviously normalcy in that setting involves I replaced all of my body with chrome. Normalcy in that setting involves I don't have arms. I have insect legs that split off into many different little keypad typing keyboard typers. Keypad typing keyboard typers? The Redundant Institute of Redundancy will be pleased. They'll also be happy. I like the idea of more mundane baseline being the weird stuff elevated. Yeah, and I think that's really important. And that's why I think it's all a matter of what are you intending with this property. For instance, Xeneolithic, the TTRPG we made, that is a setting where everything is weird. There is no baseline. I explicitly wanted there not to be a baseline because the point isn't to be scary. The point isn't to be like horrifying. The point isn't to be like, oh no, look at that thing. The point is whimsy. Weird. Fun. Right? The point is everything is odd and unusual, like a fairy tale, like folklore. Whereas in something like, for instance, Call of Cthulhu, talking about cock once more, Call of Cthulhu, this is one where you almost always have to play a normal person by necessity. I don't know if it's in the rules. I think it might literally be in the rules, where you have to play a normal mundane human that doesn't know anything about the supernatural, or if you do, you're like an occultist and you're seen as weird and you're probably wrong about a bunch of stuff, right? That's my understanding of Call of Cthulhu. So this is because when you see cultists of whom their necks are twice the length that they should be, and their mouths take up the entirety of their face, and they each have only 3 fingers on each hand, and they are hunchbacked under their robes, that's horrifying. If you had magic powers, if you could call on Cthulhu, if you could read the Elder Signs and invoke the power of Yig, like, they would not be nearly as horrifying. You can play a mage occultist. Yeah, but you can't like cast spells, can you? My understanding is in Call of Cthulhu, if you play an occultist, you're like more like an anthropologist with a study in like the occult or magic. You're more like, ah, yes, I've seen these runes at this excavation site out in Chad, and when I was on a dig site there, I saw evidence of ritual sacrifices, and so I worry that the disappearances in our town now might be leading to someone's unfortunate demise. Like, that's the kind of thing you do, is my understanding in Call of Cthulhu. Really? You can start with spells. I didn't know that. I think the only spell you can use in Call of Cthulhu without permanently going one step to literally dying is a smoke bomb. Everyone won't shut up about cock. Listen. If someone makes a compilation of every time I talk about Call of Cthulhu, but only ever when I shorten it to cock, and they just introduce it by me going like, listen, I wasn't going to say this on stream because it doesn't seem appropriate. I think cock is really nice. And then like you just like have a smash cut of all the times that I called it that, like, boom. True, but sanity is a recourse. If you do get to the point of being able to cast spells, you're likely going mad in short order. And that's and that's what I'm getting at, is that like, if you can cast spells, if you can read the signs, if that you can do the magic cool stuff, you are going to lose your character, which is the point, right? The point, much like how in Cyberpunk, the point is to die in a blaze of glory. The point of Call of Cthulhu is to play a character that will go insane at some point. At worst, you'll become an extraplanar being that will not be human anymore and actively threat to all of humanity. What do you mean at worst? That sounds awesome. speaking of cool magic stuff, CAIN, we were gonna talk CAIN, right? Oh my gosh, yeah. So I'm Arrow Writes, TTRPG VTuber, goes on tangents. It's been half an hour already. I'm not sorry. Arrow hums is not real. Arrow hums is fake news. We're gonna make a CAIN supplement. But first, two things. One, I have a Q&A channel. If you have any questions for me that are not relevant to what we're talking about literally right now, feel free to drop it in there. If you have questions about TTRPGs or Cyberpunk or Call of Cthulhu or VTubing or what's going on in the world right now, feel free to ask it there. I'll have an answer. Doesn't mean I'll have a correct answer, but I'll have an answer. And then also, something I like to do, in chat, if you're here giving me your attention, if you're watching, whether you're a lurker or a VOD watcher or an active participant, you're giving me your attention. I want to give you my attention in return. So please say hello, say hi. I want to acknowledge you. I'll say hi back. Just so that like there's an exchange of recognition here. High wave incoming. I do love the high wave. I'm not gonna lie. Like one of the sweetest things in this chat is that when I say like, oh, everyone say hi in chat, and I just get like 30 messages of just like hi, hello, hi, hey Arrow, blah, 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 heart, blah, 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 and I'm just like hi, blah, 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 blah. Hey Namer and Evil Wizard Woman and Feral and N and Moth and Some Dude and Patch and B and Original and Real Robot and Skeleton and Beluga and Licorice and Anthony and Fear Junkie and Gray and Cinnabar and I think that's everyone who is chatting. Awesome. So yeah, what we're gonna do, don't panic. I'm gonna make a CAIN supplement, but I did some mining off stream. Don't panic. So those of you that saw it before, you might remember it was like a code pink. I had some rules about untouchables. I did some mining off stream. I have a little list of stuff to add. I also added what is this? I added information on the different branches of CAIN, different sites, silos of control. I gave a little bit of a history for CAIN. I started talking about the different regions of CAIN. I started setting up a synopsis of like how the different sites are going to be formatted. And then down there is back to where it was. So I did a little bit of mining off stream. Don't worry about it. Ran an Old West cowboy themed game called Cthulhu. Ooh, that sounds fun. Arrow, show us the strip mine or it's fake. Okay, no. I just did mining off stream. Ignore the fact that in my chat it says set game mode to survival. Ignore that. Fun story. I tried it with one and the name was taken. Then you tried two, was still taken. You kept going until... Wait. So you're saying that you were just Beluga, but one was taken. So you're like, okay, fine, I'll just do 2 A's. But 2 were taken. So you're like, all right, fine. 3, no issue. Fine, 4. What do you mean 4? 5? Okay, I'll be 6 A's, I guess. And then that worked. That's hilarious. A little bit slash game mode creative there. Yeah, maybe. Maybe I did a little... Listen. I was going to say with the power of generative AI, but like then I realized some people may take that seriously, so I probably shouldn't make that joke. Realistically, like going creative in real life is just asking ChatGPT. You are just getting someone or something else to do it for you and then claiming you did it yourself, which is like... Ugh. Hey, Alza. Hey, Kaza. I've been really interested in what the heck goes on in temerity sites ever since I read the description of the occult consumables in the Warden Kit expansion. What the heck are they doing with the prayer beads and cyanide pills are part of your standard issue kit? At least... Oh, creative mode does give consistent results. Yeah, AI does not. Okay, so what is this? But creative mode is so fun. Yeah, it is. This setting guide aims to be faithful to the core of what makes CAIN so interesting, with the understanding that it actively flouts quite a few details. The core book describes that CAIN is a small, well-funded organization with a dozen subterranean facilities scattered across the world. The orbital rail launching platform Seraph monitors from the stars and deploys cryo-frozen virtues directly to the site of a sin event. Exorcists are weapons to be discarded without a second thought. This supplement describes CAIN as a much larger, sprawling organization that struggles to maintain the logistics of its many sites' competing needs. Seraph exists as an orbital support platform that can only respond to whatever region of the world it's located above. Exorcists are weapons to be discarded only after a second thought. To put it bluntly, this supplement is completely non-canon and is not trying to be. If you think the ideas in the supplement are dumb, that's awesome. Run CAIN however you want, whether in line with what Tom Bloom intended or with your own creative spin. Take what parts you like and leave the rest. The mechanics in this book are written with the interpretation of CAIN setting in mind. However, they are functionally setting neutral and can be used without any of the lore or fluff. There will be a clear divide in the supplement between mechanics and lore, so even if the latter doesn't interest you, it'll be out of the way. Have fun. There's an AI Minecraft builder. When you say AI Minecraft builder, do you mean like an AI that can play Minecraft? Do you mean a mod that just uses AI to like spawn in stuff? Do you mean like a AI site that you can ask like, hey, how do I build this thing in Minecraft? And then it shows you the schematics and then you build it yourself. Like that can mean a lot of different things. Not a fan of any of them. Theory: the Sons of Ether made the current AI screwing everyone over, so the general consensus comes, dang, AI sucks, which will ruin the technocracy's actually good AI. That would be really funny. That would be very funny if the actual real life push for generative AI was to ruin the technocracy's AI. So the first two exist. Well, so I know that there's AI Minecraft, which is a AI website that simulates Minecraft. But because it's AI and it has no permanence, it is like an LSD fever dream. It is like you look at the ground and it's all green, and then you look up and it's the sky, and you look back down and you're in the desert, and you look to the right and there's a village, but then you turn around and the village is also behind you, and then you turn around again and then you're in a cave, and then because you're in a cave, the AI thinks that beneath you there's lava, so you die. Like it's weirdo stuff like that. A mod tool that just spawns a building in your game. Like I get that if you're like making designs, you might want to speed like if you're making a giant project, I could see you wanting to speed it up, but also like no. I do that. Is this better? So y'all let me know. Would you prefer this or this? Just for the sake of legibility. Because like this should not block any text. But I don't know like which is more central to your screen. Okay. CAIN branches. Across CAIN, there are various sites that exos, admins, and logistics are concentrated at. Such sites are uniformly isolated both from civilization as well as from one another. Most sites are only aware of a dozen other sites, and in regular contact with fewer than that. They lend one another vehicles, information, and even personnel, but are expected to handle most of their operations themselves and are functionally independent from one another. Sites are divided between branches of CAIN, which determines their function. Castle sites, aka detention centers, bunkers. The most common site, housing and training exos until their inevitable deployments. Sites include everything needed for the eradication of humanity's sin, from garages to weapon arsenals to training ranges to classrooms. Most include an attached but separate wing for untouchables, facing marginally better conditions than the exos. They function both as prisons and military bases, with all the logistical strains of both. Fact: castle sites both have the greatest expenses across all of CAIN, and also the most variable budgets. There is not enough support to meet all of their needs. I like the tabs, but they're blocked by Jimbo and the fan art of the Xeneolithic buddy. Well, see, that's the thing, is that like, because I have the Maw and because I have Jimbo, it blocks a little portion of the screen. So I don't know if this is preferable, because then like, I don't know what feels better. Seer sites, aka monitoring stations, panopticons. Divided proportionately to the population distribution across the world, there are more sites in just China or only India than the United States, European Union, and Latin America combined. They rarely exceed a double-digit number of staff, but are comparatively well connected to other sites, informing them of grace readings, sin events, or exo awakenings. Each seer site is built around a single heaven's eye local to that part of the world, an exo with precognitive abilities. Fact: seer sites are not always literally built around heaven's eyes. Most are. I'll just run through all of these. Temerity sites, aka black sites, sin jails. Significantly reduced in number after the 1815 afterward restructured temerity towards quality over quantity. This was reduced further after the 1945 Second Coming conversation to a single-digit number of facilities. They are highly regulated black sites that develop weapons, hone blasphemies, and imprison sins. They also train proctors responsible for overseeing XO training at castle sites and preparing their education curriculums. Note: temerity is unpleasant. Sins are worse. Authority sites, aka offices, workplaces. There are no officially documented authority sites, as each CAIN site has a compartmentalized section responsible for oversight separate from the day-to-day activities of the rest of the site. These spaces function quite similarly to office buildings, eschewing security for the accessibility of its inhabitants. They're generally above ground outside of highly sensitive locations, resembling military bases or government facilities, in order to provide plausibility for the high volumes of truck, helicopter, and drone traffic. Note: rumors of maritime command vessels are to be disregarded. So, what is all of this? Which of those black sites houses Spindle? Good question. So, why did I do this? What is all of this here? Castle sites, obviously the most common. In CAIN, I literally looked this up, right? I literally was double checking the source book and what scant information there is in it. Obviously, there's going to be more information that Tom Bloom has revealed, on streams or in the Discord server or in Twitter, Blue Sky posts, but I'm operating off what's core. It doesn't make much sense to me that CAIN would be made up of about a dozen sites across the world, all of which do everything. I like the idea of each site being dedicated to a specific branch. And so you have a castle site, and this is like Site Epsilon from my game. This is XOs are housed here, Untouchables are housed here. This is one where there are multiple in the US, there are multiple across Canada, there are multiple in Mexico and Brazil and Argentina, and the UK probably has one mixed with Ireland. Portugal and Spain and France might share one, but Germany might have its own. All of this stuff, castle sites are scattered, right? And each one will probably have around 10 XOs, which means that if there is 100 castle sites across the entire world, probably fewer, probably 70 or 80, but there's a lot of castle sites. That's a couple hundred XOs, 500, 700 XOs. I think that's a lot. I think that is not nearly as crazy as it kind of is worried that it might be, right? Is that last one a CAIN version of the Sea Org? So the last one. So what I can do, I can literally open up the CAIN source book, and I will try my very best not to show off bad information. I will try not to show off the entire book, because I despite being a CAIN content creator and talking about this all the time and showing it off on stream, I'm sure Tom Bloom is a chill dude. I don't want to disrespect him or breach copyright or anything by showing off something I shouldn't. So I just try to only show off scant bits. So one, I don't get in trouble, and two, I don't piss him off. CAIN is a global supranational organization for the execution and disposal of supernatural phenomena, buried in a dozen massive subterranean facilities worldwide. Its behemoth machinery exists for one purpose: to wipe out the stain of humanity's sins. Without the organization, humanity would eventually collapse under the weight of its own evil. And then blah, 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 blah. Extremely well-resourced and has deployment to many global facilities and deployment sites, including the Seraph Orbital Rail and Surveillance Network. Despite this, it remains a very relatively small organization by necessity due to the nature of its activities. I assume, and he's probably given numbers on this, and I'm probably wrong, I assume that Tom Bloom is operating under the assumption that there is a double-digit number of CAIN-sanctioned XOs. Or maybe there's under 200, right? Maybe there's between 100 and 200. But my assumption is that my CAIN is much larger, more sprawling, and also significantly less powerful, right? This makes sense. Castles like the first responders, exactly. Yeah, the Untouchables are... So, Untouchables aren't the non-exo employees. Untouchables are... So, exos are people who have grace that allow them to have blasphemies, which are special psychic powers. Untouchables are guy with gun. If you are an employee of CAIN and you're like an accountant, or you're a scientist, or you are an administrator, you are not an untouchable. You are only an untouchable if you are a guy with gun, put in suit, go shoot sin, right? And untouchables are often taken from convicts, are often taken from like people that are disadvantaged and that really have like no other prospects in life. And they're basically told like, hey, join, like you're being recruited to the Untouchable program, please do not resist. And then they're effectively put through boot camp, sent off to go fight sins, and are probably going to die instantly. Sins manifest where people are, it'd be hard to justify a nautical sin. So the reason I had the nautical thing is... Where is it? What, like, somewhere here... Yeah. Its headquarters building is in the blank ocean and has extensive boarding, research, and training facilities. I interpreted that less as it's like on an island somewhere. I interpret that as more as like it is like a maritime facility and or it's like a ship. So I'm operating off the assumption that there is a centralized, like out in the middle of the Pacific spot where authority is sent up, like the head of authority, and that's not registered anywhere. They have to keep that very under lock and key. That's where the board meets up. That's where like high level executives meet up. That's where like the big movers and shakers of CAIN, probably the virtues, know about it, and that's about it. Right? So I'm operating off of that. Similarly, with Seer, utilizing CAIN's orbital surveillance platform Seraph and the Heaven's Eyes, a group of specialized precognitive XOs, I just was like, okay, how can I incorporate Heaven's Eyes? I want this to be kind of body horror. Seer sites are not always literally built around Heaven's Eyes. Most are. I like the idea of like, you have an XO that has precognitive abilities, and they're like, oh, fantastic, throw them in the machine. And then the XO is like, huh? And then they get thrown in a machine that like hones and harnesses and utilizes and drains them like a battery. Right? I think that that's a very nice bit of horror that reinforces how cold CAIN is, while simultaneously being kind of smart. Like, yes, you do want your precognitive XO to be like, there's going to be a disaster in Beijing. A sin event. I detect Cat 4. Though the type is unknown. And then, like, that'd be neat. But it'd be really cool if you could stick them in a machine, and instead of waiting for their, like, spidey sense to activate, you, like, squeeze their juice a little bit. You squeeze the lemon a bit, and then you get a pulse that detects, oh, Beijing, Cat 4 Hound, lower district. Send off the XOs. Build the machine around orphan XOs. It would be tragic if Raphael got put into the machine. Doomed, even. That would be tragic. Temerity. I like the idea that part of why Temerity isn't well liked. Napoleon took over. The Axis powers took over. I like the idea that Temerity was like so large and that like certain sections of it were taken over by Napoleon and certain sections of it were taken over by the Axis powers. And CAIN was like, okay, Temerity, you keep screwing it. Like you keep being taken over by just objectively evil people. Like, let's just not do that. And so they get shrunk and shrunk and shrunk until eventually there's a single digit number of facilities so that like, okay, it's really hard now for like the USSR to take you over. It's really hard now for the US government to abuse this. Bad XOs get put in the brain juicer, basically. Oh, kind of like that one thing O5 did to stop an Apollyon? Maybe. Ever got that Lemonade on their mind? The song I was listening to before Saltwound Routine was Lemonade. Actually, like, someone in the comments, when I made the Butcher Vanity room, right? So I made the room that was about cannibals for the Mega Dungeon. And it was inspired directly by Butcher Vanity. And one of the comments was just like, have you heard the new song Lemonade? And I'm like, no. And then they're like, you really should. It's really good. And then I didn't listen to it because I forgot. And then I heard it, like, I was like, I was listening to Butcher Vanity recently, and I'm like, actually, wasn't that a new Yeezy song that guy recommended? And then it came up next, and I'm like, oh, Lemonade. And then I was like, okay, I'm rocking Lemonade. I kind of really like this. And then I saw Salt Routine in the recommended. I'm like, what's that? I click it, and I'm like, oh, this is making me feel emotions. I don't feel things when I listen to music. That one made me feel emotions, and I don't flake, which is why I'm continuously listening to it on repeat. No, okay, let not quite that far, Junkie. What quote unquote like being involved with means? What being involved with like taking over means? Unclear. I am dancing around a lot of very dangerous circumstances. I might end up removing this in the future. I do like the idea of real life events impacting it, which is why later, I'm actually going to. Okay, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. Put a pin in that. The idea of real life atrocities impacting CAIN, and this is a taste thing. This is a how much of the real world do you want to influence your fantasy game? I don't want it to be a central focus, but I do like the believability of it influencing it. So I did a bit of a creative writing project. First, let me talk silos of control. Okay. The average XO will the site further from the XO's point of origin is selected. Because obviously, if you pick someone up in upstate New York and a site in Ohio and a site in Florida both need an XO that has their blasphemy, you're probably going to want to send them further from home. So that, one, they're less likely to run, and two, so that they're not going to be like, I mean, really, they just don't have conflicting feelings. They're like, oh, I'm so far away, I'll never get home. You want them to not be able to like run home, basically. Untouchables are often trained at a specific castle site, usually one deemed cool by Seer with a low volume of nearby sin manifestations. They're then shipped to a hot site and deployed on sweeps, cleanup, and hunt support with a life expectancy of 2 deployments. Those that survive the terrible 2 are often promoted to non-commissioned officer and redeployed to a site lacking veteran untouchables. So even though untouchables similarly aren't treated well, and they're kind of restricted in their mobility, they're much more likely to swap around sites. They're going to be trained at one site, sent to a second site. If they survive there, they'll be promoted and sent somewhere else where they need NCOs. 2 deployments to veteran benefits is crazy. Yeah. This is a game where like normal mundane humans are not going to survive sin encounters. So I like the idea that it's like 2 deployments, and that includes like sweeps and cleanups. That includes fighting like drifters. That includes after the XOs kill the sin, like cleaning up the rest of the traces as deployments. So I like the idea that like they have a life expectancy of 2 deployments, and in the untouchable rules I made, they start out at Cat 0, and after 2 admissions, you advance to Cat 1. You still have no blasphemy. You still have no grace, but as a mundane human, the like Usain Bolt has like a Cat 1 speed, right? Bodybuilders might have a Cat 1 in strength and lifting ability. Einstein might have a Cat 1 intelligence, right? Cat 1 is the limits of what a normal mundane human is. So I like the idea that after 2 missions, you are functionally Cat 1. Like you did not survive that far unless you were Cat 1. So it's kind of like assigned to you. Which means very little. I'm not going to lie. However, you're slightly stronger. You're slightly smarter. You're slightly faster. You're slightly just all these things. The Kishibe playbook, basically. I would say Kishibe he's probably more like, because he has devil deals, right? He would be an XO. He would be an XO if he has devil deals. Because then doesn't he have like the knife devil to deal with them? Doom guy before Doom music hit? Yeah. I imagine if there was any effect of the Axis powers on temerity, it would be reflected in treatment of exos and research, but it would be too, yeah. So for instance, I'm just gonna say it straight up because I've talked around it before and other people have brought it up. Like, I'm of the opinion that in the CAIN universe, where CAIN has canonically existed since the 17th century, I feel like in like the 1930s, there would be like a Cat 6 centipede in Europe, right? And I'm not going to talk about what specifically that was, but I feel like the sheer hatred, malice, and evil festering in Germany at the time would have manifested a huge, massive, giant centipede. And so I feel as though CAIN not responding to it indicates that they were either unable or unwilling. And it's not pleasant. However, I do believe that it's not unreasonable to say, like, yeah, if there was a site in Germany, that would probably work for the Germans. Like that's not okay. That's not pleasant. That's not a good thing. That's not an endorsement of that. But I think that's not unrealistic. And that's something where, like, I don't want to get too much into like real world stuff, which is why this is all just kind of like background lore. I'm trying not to be offensive. I'm trying not to be problematic. And I might end up removing stuff like, oh, after 1945, they were reduced further because that has certain implications. And despite what I think might be cool, that doesn't mean that it's actually cool, right? Wonder if there have been cases of untouchables aiding, causing, or becoming sins? Oh, probably. This is terrifying and fitting. Very cool lore, but understandable for you to be yeah, and I'm hesitant to include it, not because I'm not hesitant to include it because it feels like punching down. I'm hesitant to include it explicitly because I've seen so many other settings try to like be like, you know, that thing that happened in Europe in the 20th century that like killed millions of people, we should incorporate that into our game. And then they never do it right. And I don't want to be one more person being like, don't worry, I got this. I can address what is one of the greatest atrocities in all of human history and put it in my fun little silly TTRPG supplement. So like, I'm kind of talking around it, but like, you know, I'm just kind of uncomfortable like calling it what it is. I don't want to be insensitive. Exactly. What was happening before the 17th century? That's a good question. I think what it was, my understanding, my guess is that prior to the 17th century, because in CAIN, 1684, established by the Covenant of Worms, basis of old Hermetic orders, I assume it was in the Franco Empire, or in the Franks. What was France before France? It's escaping me. But like Charlemagne and his paladins probably went around killing sins, right? In the Roman Empire, they were probably having legionnaires fighting sins, right? Gaul, thank you. Human monkey brains weren't as cortisol soaked. Industrial Revolution probably had a crazy effect. That is also probably true. I think Old World of Darkness explicitly says the thing happened was 100% human only atrocity. Yeah, and like that's why I don't want it to be like, oh, this whole thing was actually just a sin. Ha ha ha. Because like, for instance, World of Darkness is what I was thinking of. World of Darkness does something. Okay. I'm going to talk about World of Darkness lore for a second. If you need to bow out, let me know. Or don't even let me know. Just like turn away for a few minutes. World of Darkness, in Wraith, there's a whole supplement about how if you're a Wraith, you died and you have unfinished business and you can't move on. So naturally, a lot of people with unfinished business died and felt vengeance and like had a whole host of stuff going on with them in World War II and the surrounding atrocities. The design team thought the best way to handle that was to take all of the people who died in that, which again was human run. It was like the game is clear of like this was done by humans to humans. It was not vampiric intervention. It was not the worm. It was like evil done by humans to other humans, right? We're going to put them in their special own kingdom called the Kingdom of Wire. And then we're gonna isolate them from everyone else. And then we're just gonna have them off in the corner and not address them. Like not like I'm not trying to do that. Like, I'm not trying to do this. I want to avoid this if possible. So, and then also like World of Darkness has done other things like real life atrocities that are more recent. They're like, the vampire like Camarilla was doing this to upset the nearby Sabbat power structure. And then real life people that lost people and like the actual atrocities that like they knew people who died in them and had personally experienced are like, hey, can you not say the thing that like killed my friend or my grandfather or my neighbor or my spouse? Like that was just vampire politics. That is incredibly offensive. And so World of Darkness has run into this a couple times. And so Fear Junkie, like, that's what they are, is those wraiths in the Kingdom of Wire. Their whole thing is they go around, they find other wraiths that were responsible for what happened in 1930s and 1940s Germany, and the modern descendants of that ideology, and they go around and they capture them, they bring them back to the Kingdom of Wire, and they grind their soul into construction materials. But like, baby girl, you can't do that. Like my first thought of a bad thing was like a Rat King-esque wraith. Oh my gosh. Honey, no, what are you doing? Oh, did you talk about the Splot book entirely based around an ethnic stereotype? No, DP, I talked about the Kingdom of Wire, which is in the Shadowlands and is about all of the wraiths that died in 1930s Germany and 1940s Germany. Also, the couple were mostly the Sombra? The Sombra. Again, this is like touching on real world topics. This is a game talking about real world topics. Please keep that in mind. Please keep that separation in mind. Am I crazy for thinking Ventrue? Because La Sombra, I mean, like, La Sombra are about control, right? And they're about, but they mostly were like with the church. My first thought was Ventrue because they're like obsessive about ruling, superiority, being better than everyone else. And we haven't even gotten to World of Darkness portrayal of Roma. Yeah, to the Romani. There was this is what DP brought up. There was a splat in World of Darkness depicting a word for Romani people as a supernatural creature. I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't know if I'm actually like allowed to say that word. I know it's offensive, but I don't know if it's like a slur, you know? Because like obviously, like if I call you an idiot, like that's offensive, right? But that's not like a slur. I don't know if calling them by their other name is like so bad that I can't even like talk about it and say it's a bad thing, or if it's a sort of word where it's just like, no, it's just like calling them idiots, and like I shouldn't call them an idiot, but I can still say the word idiot. It's a slur? Okay, yeah. The G word, yes. So they had a source book that was called G word. And you played as supernatural entities that went around Eastern Europe using your magic special powers of, you know, Romani customs in order. That's also La Sombra? Yeah, that is also La Sombra. The people who broke down the wall were anarchs, yeah. Yeah, so they also had a supernatural creature that was called the G words that used just Romani customs and practices as their magic. Yeah. Okay, I think Beluga's a little bit delayed because everyone else is reacting to Romani stuff and Beluga's still talking about Venture in La Sombra. So that makes a very awkward contribution to the conversation. What, this exists? Who thought it was a good idea? It was the 90s. And it was by a bunch of white guys. Presumably. I don't think it's unfair to assume that a TTRPG dev studio in the 90s in America was a bunch of white guys. That might be wrong. There might have been women. There might have been like BIPOC individuals. There might have been any number of individuals. But given particularly how White Wolf has struggled with inclusivity and sensitivity, even in the 2010s, I would not be surprised if it was like 90% white guys. Racism against Romani people is still super normalized, especially in Europe. Yeah, that sucks. And that's why, like to bring this all back, I don't want to be the sort of person that says like, haha, this fun thing, this fun game that I'm playing involves this cool bit of lore, which is cool to me because I personally have no connection to it. So let me go in and in CAIN, let me say that they systematically went through and did something bad to this group of people. That can be like interesting lore. That can also be really offensive if you're part of that group of people. That can feel hostile. That can just remind you of the fact that this thing has happened in a game where you don't want to be reminded of that. White guys in the 90s didn't get the memo that Coco was more 80s by the same people that brought you Pimp the Backhanding. Pimp Backhanding. No. No. Oh my gosh. What? Wait. There's a card to get knocked up? Are any of these higher resolution? No. Oh no, you can get the CAIN. Oh my god. Is the core of this system your backhand rating? Oh my gosh. Is reality even real? Dude, the 90s were something else. Oh no. Does anyone want to run Big Dave Stud? She may not know she's a hoe, so you better take a couple of those wine coolers. Oh my gosh. Wait. Jump ship. When threatened with a backhanding contest, apparently there's a contest for backhanding. Dave may abandon the hoe before dice are rolled to save himself the risk of being whacked. The hoe is lost and Big Dave Stud is fine. This is 2005! People associate cocaine with the 80s, but the people in the 90s were clearly on something. Okay, like, I do want to inform you, this did come up when I looked up Google Images. So, I understand Pimp My Backhand is like Pimp My Ride, and it's talking about tennis, so it's presumably innocent. However, that is very funny that that also came up. Oh, I found rules! Okay. B better have my money. Now you can experience the dizzying highs and soul-bending lows of exploiting women, pushing drugs, and dodging undercover cops. Will you become a Mac Daddy, leasing out high-priced call girls to discriminating clientele, or a lowly fishmonger making a sticky bankroll off the disease? off the diseased crack addicts you've gotten hooked? Or will they find your unconscious body pistol whipped into submission lying in a storm drain? There's only one way to fulfill your destiny. Play Pimp the Backhanding. Or the Backhanding. Game setup. Designate a card... Designate a card dealer and have him divide the 100 cards into 3 decks according to the logo on the backs: a pimp deck, a hoe deck, and a draw deck. Have the card dealer shuffle each deck and fetch a couple 6-sided dice, not included. Raid your little sister's Sugar Shoots game. Well, not technically required for play, a nice malt liqueur or your favorite vintage of fortified wine is also a fine accessory. Pimp cards. A pimp card features an illustration of one of society's finest gentlemen, along with his macking and backhanding scores. Macking, for you cultural illiterates, is a pimp's ability to bring home some poo-tang, and backhanding is ability to beat some ass. Use pimps to beat up Max, hoes, or to bust up, backhand, your opponent's hoes. Hoe cards. Each hoe card features an illustration and the street value of a hoe. We've kept the prices low, so you can still do math after a couple of malt liqueurs. The point of the game is to collect the highest street value of hoes after 3 rounds of play. You can try to get a whole harem of cheap hoes, or focus on the pricey ones. It's all about the amount of dough your hoes are worth at the end of play. The draw cards give you stuff to help you win, or they might make you give you Webster. There are 3 types of cards in the draw deck. Pimps who join your posse to a maximum of 7 characters. Modifiers that say something like +1 to macking, and they're slapped onto your pimps to add to your die rolls and contests. And dirty tricks to make your opponents bend over and grab their ankles in very delightful... The instructions are on the cards. Pimp cards have a yellow border. Modifiers have a purple border. Dirty tricks use a red border. Use draw cards or put in a discard pile. Well, now we just have to see Arrow plays some stream, but I mean, it has to be Rory and Neko. I thought this was like a TCG. I thought this was a TCG that you would go around and you would like build your pimp deck like Commander style MTG. Apparently, this is like a card game. Take it to the street. Have the dealer deal 5 hoes face up in the center of the table. These hoes are on the street, and you and your opponents compete over these. Is this a word I can say? Am I allowed to say this? This feels like it's offensive. I feel like I shouldn't be able to say this. The card dealer then deals each player 5 pimp cards. Place these pimps face up in front of you. They make up your posse. There are also a few pimp characters in the draw deck who can join your posse when you draw them. If your posse ever exceeds 7 characters, you discard any pimps above 7. Just be safe and go with no. That's what I'm doing. I don't think anyone says that anymore because it's old slang. If I can't say it, who... Thank you for saying it's very crass. Like, I'm assuming it's not a slur. I'm assuming it's just like very inappropriate to say. Finally, the card dealer deals each player 5 cards from the draw deck, so that's 5 hoes, 5 pimps, and 5 draw cards. Even the most slack-jawed fool of a card dealer can remember that. If any of your card draws are pimps, portraying a character with a macking and backhanding score, lay them down in front of you to join your posse. You can also keep any pimps acquired from the draw deck in your hand to join your posse when you choose, or when you lose existing members. All other cards are concealed in your hand. Read your dirty tricks so you know when the opportunity arises to use them. You now embark on an epic struggle for 3 rounds. Each round consists of a macking phase, a backhanding phase, and finally, a money laundering phase. Ah, of course. Each pimp in your posse can only be used once per round, either to mack a hoe or backhand one of the harlots an opponent tries to take home. Sorry, this is the first time I've seen harlots written down and like used legitimately in years. In the money laundering phase, you score any hoe you macked that didn't get the nonsense knocked out of her in the backhanding phase. You also get 5 more draw cards. 5 new hoes take to the street for a new round, unless it's round 3, in which case you total up your hoes and see who wins. The macking phase. Can't forget about the money on it. I know. We're learning the system. We are learning the system. What does the art style look familiar? Okay, like as soon as I learned that it was like 2000s, like this looks like 2000s animation. This looks like a 2000s cartoon, right? So name, backhanding, macking, special ability. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I'm just like still in shock at this. Determined by dice roll which player goes first. That player places a pimp next to one of the 5 hoe cards walking the street. Then go clockwise with each player assigning a pimp to mack a particular hoe until each player has played all the pimps he wants to use for macking, and he passes. You want to save a couple to backhand the hoes your opponent's mack. You can play only 1 pimp to mack each hoe. None of your posse wants sloppy seconds. Is macking... Oh. I thought... This is genuinely less evil than Yu-Gi-Oh! Just trust me on this. How it started, hey chat, I'm making a CAIN supplement. How it's going, let's play Pimp the backhanding. Or maybe, like Men in Black anime series. It's the sunglasses. That's what it is. So is macking like... I thought macking was kissing. Is macking not kissing? I don't think it's kissing in this game. But more than 1 player can play a pimp on a single hoe. Once you pass on assigning more pimps to mack, you're done for the phase. Once all players have passed, the macking begins. Start the most expensive hoe and going in order to the cheapest. Players perform their macking contest. All players trying to mack that hoe get a chance to play any modifier cards on their pimp to boost his macking score. Once a modifier is placed on a pimp, it stays on him for the rest of the game. Oh, unless some sneaky jerk steals it. Once players have had a chance to play modifiers, it's time to play some dirty trick cards like Turkey Pot Pie or Undercover Cop, if you have them in your hand. Now, dice are rolled to determine who takes the hoe home. Your macking total is equivalent to macking score plus macking modifiers plus die roll. Whoever gets the highest total pulls the hoe back to the side of the table, leaving the pimp on top of the hoe, or the hoe on the pimp positions of personal choice. The winning pimp has to defend her against any backhand attempts in the next phase. Losing pimps slink back to their posse unless they're riding in their stretch limo and still have another hoe to mack. They cannot be used again until the next round. If macking pimps tie for the highest score, then the pimps that tied keep rolling till one of them wins. Repeat the macking contest for each hoe who's contested. A non-contested hoe, a girl you've macked on but none of your opponents assigned to, is considered macked by whatever pimp played on her. She can still be backhanded like any other hoe who is successfully macked. Any hoe not successfully macked is left on the street at the end of the macking phase. Macking generally means to aggressively flirt, hit on, or make advances. I thought it was kissing. I thought if you were macking on someone, it was like, you know? Macking contains multitudes. So Arrow, in 2005, it was not a woke time, where there was severe pushback against the game. No, I know 2005 was not a woke time. I was around in 2005. I did not realize this was 2005. This might be the stupidest sidetrack we've been on. Beating Guilty Gear by a mile. This is wild to me. Like, am I crazy for wanting to learn the rest of this? Like, I'm sure the rest of this is just like, then with backhanding, you can attempt to backhand an enemy's hoe, but if you have a defense, like I play my pimp in defense position, and then you attack my hoe, my defense position pimp can defend my hoe, and then they backhand each other, and then whoever gets backhanded, you lose them from your posse, because there's going to be some tongue-in-cheek reference to how, like, oh, like, only losers get pimp slapped. This feels like going back to watch old G4. I think the wiki article covers it. Where's the guy who first uttered the words pimp the backhanding, reveal yourself? There's no way it would be quite that tame. Well, I know, but like... I had thoughts. Anyway, that was a nice little refresh after a fairly unpleasant conversation. Every time Arrow says ho, I die a little bit more. Did you know that's one of the few words that's like not appropriate that like I'm comfortable saying? Like generally I don't curse. I say like frick, I say darn, I say drat. I need to say like gee whiz more because I think that's fun. Gadzooks is fun. Criminy. But I'll call people a hoe. But not because, but like, to me, saying a hoe ain't offensive. Gee Willikers? I was also thinking Gee Willikers. Is it bad that I've seen some games with worse mechanics than this? Don't get me wrong. The theme in this game is terrible, though. No, that's the thing. I have not played this game. Clearly, I learned about this game like 20 minutes ago. The mechanics seemed fine. From what I'm aware, you have your active characters, you have a resource you are fighting over, and then you have events and instants that you can use to do. So your characters can either pursue a resource or they can deny a resource from your enemy. You play events in order to influence this, and then you roll. Where the better your unit, the better your active agent, the better your creature, the better your roll is likely to be. And your goal is to maximize your own resources while like diminish the resources of your opponents. And presumably, if you play your pimp in defense position on your hoe, and then I come up and I backhand you and I win, I backhand both your pimp and your hoe. And so you lose the hoe and you lose the pimp. But if I fail, I lose my pimp. And so there's a risk reward mechanic where you don't want to send your creature to fight over something that it can't win. Like flavor aside, narrative aside, that's my understanding of the mechanics, and that's just a solid game. That's not special, that's not unique, that's not like, that probably won't win you any awards, but that's why you have to like come up with something so utterly insane as a pimping game, as the flavor. Arrow, can you add pimps and hoes to CAIN Homebrew next stream? How would I do that? No. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Arrow, you don't have to commit to every bit. Control yourself. I really do need to control myself. Save that for AO3. I don't use AO3. I'm sorry. We're not doing CAIN exploitation. Arrow, no. You're right. Arrow, I do have to commit to every bit. 100 is way too. No, Zap, that was my thought. My first thought was like, $100 is way too cheap. Listen, at least pay my rent. Like the bit has taken me places I would not go with a gun. I've said this before. Oh, with my player, I was talking to Cell. Yesterday, we ended up calling for CAIN. I ended up being like, I want to finish this video. And then I ended up not finishing the video. So I'm like, okay, let me just hop on like half an hour late. Then we ended up chatting. We ended up not running CAIN. We were just chatting the entire time. I feel as though if I was to make something like sussy, even as a joke, I would need to charge significantly more. You could only sell your dignity once. And I would need to like set myself up for at least the foreseeable future if I was to do that. Dude, do you think the amount of suffering in the stream is enough to manifest a cat 1 hound? No, I think I'm a cat 1 centipede. And I think that instead of infesting you with like zombie virus, I infest you with horrible ideas. Animal exploitation? You did not just call them filthy animals. Can you exploit exos since they're non-human? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Anyway, I was talking with them, and they... Do I share this story? I don't think I shared this story. Anyway, I had a CAIN session, and I was chatting with them, and then it ended up being like 2 hours after we were supposed to start, and we generally have like a 3-hour session. So I'm like, honestly, I'm not in the mood for CAIN at this point. And they're like, nah. So then we ended up playing Super Battle Royale Animal? Super Animal Battle Royale? Does anyone know the game? It's a free game on Steam. It's like a Fortnite like top-down Battle Royale game where you're all like animals, like foxes and whatever, and like you shoot each other, and it feels very much like a Flash game. We ended up playing that. You do a lot for $50,000. Listen, if someone like if I got $50,000 from this channel, and it wasn't like from one person, because if it was from one person, I would assume they were going to charge back scam, and I would not operate off of that in any capacity. If I got like communally, if the community raised like $50,000, listen. You want an exploitation Lancer supplement? I'll give you an exploitation Lancer supplement. My standards are high. They are not $50,000 high. They're classified as supernatural entities, like a sin, but more docile. No, not Super Auto Pets. Super Auto Pets is different. That's a browser game. It was a different one. It's been 90 minutes since live started. Where is that taking us? Are you comfortable sharing the story? And do you think Cell would be? No, so Cell would definitely be comfortable with the sharing. I just think it would give off the wrong impression. I've been shipped with my friends before, and I don't know if I want to start this with Cell. It would be very funny, and I don't really care. If I do a collab with someone and then people want to ship me with them, I don't much care. Don't be weird about it. Don't come to that collab or my interactions with that person with that as an assumption. But like, I don't care. Like, I'm pretty, at this point, I'm pretty open about stuff like shipping. But anyway, Cell at one point had something in their mouth that made it sound like they were gagged. And so naturally I joked about that. And I said, oh, well, you got to send me a picture then. And they're like, you know what, bet? And I'm like, you know what? Nah, if you're going to send me a picture, you have to be on your knees wearing the gag when you send it to me. And then they went like, okay, sure. And I'm like, what? And so I was playing chicken with Cell on accident, where I was just saying like more unhinged things just to push it even further. And then they were just down. They were just chill with that. And it continues terribly. We want exploitation actual play. I think, like, would I ever be willing to play Girl Frame as an actual play? I actually would. Crazy thought. If I was to play with like NSFW content creators and we were to just like play Girl Frame, and obviously like if I knew these people and had some sort of positive relationship with them, like I'm not going to be weird about it. It's a game. That could be very interesting. However, not for $50,000. Do not the gay chicken. Yeah, you accidentally flirted with that. That's the thing. I just said unhinged nonsense, and then they were down. I accidentally flirted with Cell again. Yes, ship of Theseus. If someone who I was into said anything like that to me, I would spontaneously combust. So you definitely accidentally flirted. Listen, I said it entirely because I thought it was funny. I thought it was silly. I say unhinged things to my friends because it makes them laugh. Normally, they're not into it. What about $50,000 in one? Now we're talking. Unhinged nonsense, but it works is basically flirting. I need to like stop saying words. I need to just like keep my mouth shut. Presumably with a gag at this point. Okay, so we talked about average XO, we talked about untouchables, admin and support staff. Silos of control. They are assigned to a site based on their expertise, or in the case of less specialized roles, which I'm thinking less specialized roles like mechanic, you still have to be specialized to be a mechanic, but you're not like a grace researcher, right? You're not or like a security guard. Security guard is kind of specialized, but that's not really something that like it really matters which site you're at. You're just a security guard. So in the case of less specialized roles, location. They're likely to stay at the same site for years at a time unless they apply to transfer or are requested to transfer to fulfill another site's needs. Admin or staff may be forcibly transferred to another site due to disciplinary infractions or concerns regarding their efficiency for a number of factors. This is uncommon due to their non-CAIN ties to family, friends, and or the area. Gag arrow with a CAIN. What? I keep picturing perfect Cell. That's pretty funny. You have to DM a girlfriend one shot for the 5 biggest contributors. No, that would be like super parasocial. That is something like I'm not even going to joke about that. Like that's something that like I could unironically see people doing that. And I think if I like made that as a joke, people would probably contribute, and that would be problematic on so many different levels. I'm not gonna joke about that. That'd be insanely parasocial. However, I do think it would be fun that if I was like friends with lewd tubers who were comfortable exploring that kind of stuff, to play a TTRPG system where lewdness is just one more aspect of it. Because like, I wouldn't be weird about it. And presumably if like that's part of their career, they wouldn't be weird about it. And then we would just like stream it on like the other site, right? Probably on one of their channels, which would be a wild thing. You sat there. You find this like cutie with a booty. You're like, I want to subscribe to their blue streaming site. And then you do it. And then the first thing that pops up is that they're playing a TTRPG, but like everyone playing a TTRPG, but the only thing is that everyone's naked. No one addresses it. No one talks about it. It's not like portrayed in a way to make you go bow chicka wow wow. It's just everyone's in call, cameras on, naked. Surprisingly few NSFW actual plays. I imagine that there's not that many, that there's not a big audience for it, is my guess. I can't say I've sought one out before. You could just pick names out of a hat. That would be very funny. Gag you with a spoon? But it's arrow in the CAIN supplement. I don't know. My memory of the 80s expression is 90% movie based. I would unironically be tempted to sign up to a website to see you play as a GM, not because of the NSFW. yeah, definitely not because of the NSFW. I want to set up a game that I can run for some friends, and then I'll like stream it in Discord, like on the Arrow stage. I think that would be fun. And maybe upload it to Patreon. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like it might be better to just have it not be recorded. I don't really know. I feel like actual plays aren't that interesting, personally. I feel like I'm not that great a GM. I'm not that great a player. And I feel like actual plays are something where, unless you're like the Dimension 20 cast, unless you're the Critical Role cast, unless you're like a bunch of people who all are good at acting and also good friends with each other that can tell a collaborative story, it's probably not that interesting. And 9 times out of 10, the game gets in the way of the actual play being interesting. Horror games and NSFW can get really dark really fast. Yeah. Your chat's full of freaks. My chat is full of freaks. And honestly, like, I don't mind. I don't mind that my chat is full of freaks, because I've said this before, I'll say it again. The freaks in chat are very good at not being a freak until I open the freak door. When I start talking about something freaky, y'all beat me by a country mile. But overwhelmingly, y'all don't make it weird when I don't want you to make it weird. And I'm very appreciative of that. And that is why I'm so tolerant of how I like the freakitude of my chat. You play Monster Hearts, it's like World of Darkness feels written by a 13-year-old. What? So the 90s World of Darkness? You aren't freaks, meow. I think that actual plays are definitely a completely different skill set than actually playing TTRPGs. And that's why, like, I've literally said this since I started my channel. Since I started the channel, I have said, I don't want to run an actual play like an actual game. I want to, at some point, I want to have a group of content creators who I have run for previously and that have been a group before, that know the system they're playing, and that we play a game where their fun is not the priority. The priority is telling a good story and making a good show. I'm like to treat them like they are actors rather than they are players, which is not how you should run a game. I run my games where my players' fun is my top priority. If they have fun, I have fun. If the story sucks, if the mechanics were stupid, if there was a bunch of rules arguing, but they had fun, that was a good game. If they went off 3 hours on a shopping tirade and spent all of their money and then tried to steal it back and then failed and then got in jail and then they broke out of jail and then they went back to the store and then they ended up trying to steal the exact same money again and failing again, that's fun and that's good. As a viewer, that tends to be less interesting. And a lot of people who say, no, I would watch that. That sounds awesome. You're thinking of shows in which there's always forward progress. In a TTRPG game, there's rarely forward progress. Now, not to say that there's never forward progress, and oftentimes every single session has forward progress, but 2 hours of combat where every 15 minutes an enemy dies isn't very fun. Oh gosh, the shopping episode of Critical Role with Orion. No, you would not enjoy that. In fairness, that was like a problem player, right? And I know that there's a whole bunch of discourse about that. I know there's a whole bunch of like video essays talking about that, whatever. In fairness, that instance was a problem player. Oftentimes, shopping episodes can be fun. The issue, like for instance, Vax talking to Gilmore, Victor the Black Powder Merchant talking to Percy, like in season 1 of Critical Role. But that's not always the case, and it usually takes the GM going out of their way to make the shopping episode interesting for the viewer. You can see Travis Williams' soul die. I do not remember that. I watched it when it came out. Does the Neolithic which has mostly forward momentum with their checks seems ideal? Kinda, a little. Embarrassingly, I think I subscribed either because of CAIN shorts or the girl frame short. I didn't make a girl frame short. I made a girl frame long form. Or maybe it was the CAIN shorts interesting me and the girl frame one locked me in. Yeah. The freaks are good at staying in the basement, and I appreciate that. And like, I'm curious. I've asked this before. Answers have been all over the place. Arrow Freaks. Is Arrow Freaks real? I don't know. I don't know if Arrow Freaks is real. You tell me. Am I freaky? Or just doing stupid bits all out the Adventure Zone? Yeah, thinking about how much my home D&D would suck as an actual play. We progress very little because we're making... Yeah, they're funny. They're characters interact that are funny. Now, my thought process is my ideal of running a TTRPG game. And like probably what I would start with is I would want it to be we play probably maybe play by post, maybe we have dedicated sessions off stream. And then the really dramatic moments we record. Where, oh no, I'm running for Gray. Gray, you are a rogue that left the Thieves Guild to go get revenge on your father. And so you're running around and you're fighting bandits and you're leveling up and you kill some goblins. And then you meet a contact from the Thieves Guild who says, hey, Gray, I have a job for you. And so what we do is we play through all of that separately, and then we record the session where the Thieves Guild contact is talking to Gray. And we introduce it with like, here's who Gray is. Here's what Gray has been doing. Gray, after slaying some bandits and blah, 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 and learning about where Gray's father might have been, they're reached out to by this contact from the Thieves Guild. And then we play the scene. 20, 30, maybe 45 minutes of just chatting, just talking. And then we wrap up that scene and Gray tells me what they want to do next. And then we stop recording. And then Gray goes and does that thing. And then they go and they scout out the castle, and then they see that the guard rotations are blah, 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 and they scale, blah, blah, blah. And they go inside, and then they reach the throne room where their father is. And as they push open the door, I say, okay, we're going to wrap it up here. We're going to record the encounter. And then we start recording. And then this next session starts with explaining, after talking with the Thieves Guild and going to the castle, they scouted the outside and saw guard rotations and went inside and snuck through and barely managed to stop the alarm from being set off. And then they open the door. And then we have a 30, 45 hour long scene talking to their father, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I would like, because I feel like that is the best way to skip past all of the boring but necessary stuff. Because as a player, it's really cool to be sneaking through a castle and then you roll a 7 on your stealth and you see that there's a guard up ahead and one of the guards says, hold up, do you hear that? I'm gonna go check that out. And now you have to improvise and panic and on the fly. However, if you're looking up like, okay, I have a vial of acid. Would you say the wall was made of? Oh, okay. So acid won't work there. I mean, I don't have any magic items that I can use. I have if I use ball bearings and I like put them on the floor, like would the guard like see them if they walked in? Okay, so it's a check, but do I know anything about? Oh, okay, the guard's in the other room, so I can't see them. Okay. Oh right, if I make them fall on the floor, they'll make a huge noise, so I shouldn't do that anyway. I mean, I could just kill them, but I don't have to hide the body. And like talking for 10 minutes and like planning, that's not really fun to watch. That's not really interesting, but that is really fun to play through, right? So like Dingo Doodles, basically Dingo Doodles, but instead of a full summary, it would be like a 2/3 summary, 1/3 actual play. Because I feel like actually showing the game would be fun. My ideal TTRPG game would be a PM TTRPG where I'm the only player. I don't know what PM is. Record and trim. That and that's what I'm saying, is that we record like 45 an hour of talking to the father, and then we trim that down to like 20, 30 minutes, right? I think that would be ideal. However, I also know a lot of people say, hey, no, like, you're stupid, Arrow. I think you're cool. I think that you'll run a good game. And I want to see it. And I disagree. But I also recognize that, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you're interested in. Project Moon, understood. I don't mind the morning bursts because I play a game usually while listening, and that makes a lot of sense. So the players know to be on top of their game when their record button is on. And ideally, what it is that y'all have seen this before. An actual play starts. The first 5 episodes, 7 episodes even, like the first, like, usually only a single digit, but like the first couple episodes, which ends up being like 20 hours of content, ends up being everyone's kind of awkward. No one really knows each other's characters that well yet. No one really is at the point where they can communicate effectively. They might be struggling with their mechanics. This is a new game for them, new characters, new setting, maybe even a new GM. And so everyone's kind of like testing the waters. And I think that this, if we run 3 sessions of the party of like Licorice and Patch and Real, all 3 of you are part of a holy order, and for 3 sessions you are talking to each other, and you're meeting like the Grand Inquisitor of the order, and you go out and you fight some undead, and you fight some more undead, and you come back, and then you have to like report back to the Grand Inquisitor. You have 3 sessions of not just meeting the Grand Inquisitor, but also meeting each other. And so the first recorded session, suddenly you've already been talking to these people for 12 hours. You already understand that, like, oh, Licorice really hates Patch. Patch doesn't really like Licorice. However, like, Patch and Real Robot, they're tight. Licorice and Patch, they're getting on well. So you have like relationships that have already formed and that can be built off of. None of you like the Inquisitor, and all of you like each other more than the Inquisitor. And then it turns out, in reporting back to the Inquisitor is possessed by a demon. And so now you have to slay the demon possessed Inquisitor. And now all of you have a dramatic tie to it. Even if the audience watching doesn't really care as much, because all of you have talked to this Inquisitor 3 times before and 4 times before, and you hate the Inquisitor, so you're happy to take them out, and the audience picks up on that. That is called subtext. Now, as a player, you can't really fake subtext. Like yes, you can if you're very good, but I would say the average player struggles at faking emotional attachment. Even very skilled players, even very like seasoned players, even veteran players, even players that love acting, a lot of times what you'll see, I start a game, I have a little sister, and she's the light of my life, and she's what I'm fighting for, and I went off to go earn riches to send back to her, and then 15 sessions go by where I've never interacted with her. And then on the 16th session, the little sister is introduced to the game, and I, as a player, I'm like, oh, my little sister, the person I care most about, even though, like, I, as a player, have never interacted with her. My character lived their entire life with their little sister and loves her and cares about her and wants to protect her, but I, as a player, meeting her for the first time, it's very hard for me as a player to connect with her. So if you have a situation where, out of stream, out of recording, your players have already interacted with NPCs, have already interacted with each other, you don't need to fake that subtext anymore. you have subtext, relationships, history. Even if it's only a collective 1 hour. You know you don't like this person, and you know that the last time you talked to them, they said, bring me back the head of the bandit leader, or there will be consequences. And you know, like, we did not bring back the head of the bandit leader. We let the bandit leader go because they were like a struggling, like, poor person that just wanted to get by, and we told them to like skip town because the Inquisitor's going to be after them. And like everyone's kind of like sweating as they go back to the Inquisitor to report that they quote unquote failed what they feel was a bad mission. And then you have a genuine argument with the Grand Inquisitor because like, hey, like you're being completely unreasonable here. That was just someone struggling. And then the audience picks up on that. The audience sees you genuinely are frustrated with the Grand Inquisitor. And so the audience gets frustrated with the Grand Inquisitor, even though they've never met them before. Some games start with pre-existing relationships. Until now, I did not understand why. Well, so that's the thing is that like, if I run a game, Fear, you and Beluga are siblings in this game. Maybe you say like, oh yeah, we're siblings. We're like, we really care about each other, but we banter and we bicker all the time. Like we're that kind of sibling relationship. What I've seen almost always is that players, when they start with this, because they've never interacted with each other before, one of them takes it one direction, one of them takes it another, and they very slowly, over multiple sessions, reach a point where they kind of like have a symbiosis and a balance. So at first, it feels awkward. It feels like they're not actually siblings. It feels like they are players pretending to be siblings. And then it's over time, as they get more used to it, that they actually start having that kind of rapport and that propinquity. Which is why I think it is most beneficial to maybe not even here, but like here. This is not recorded. This is when you start recording. Because then, even though they're still not quite on the same level, they've had 2, 3, 4 sessions together. They have talked to each other for 5, 6, 7 hours. They already know your propensity is to like jokingly flirt with everyone we meet. So I have my like canned list of responses of just like, oh, well, guess if you the hoe, I'm the pimp, gonna backhand you, like whatever it ends up being. Players who play siblings should banter in DMs and character. Exactly. Same thing with like if you're in a relationship, if you're in a failing relationship, if you're two people who are childhood best friends, if you're two people who are rivals that hate each other, if you have a pre-existing relationship, I feel it is beneficial and almost required to tell a good story that you basically method act beforehand. And now, obviously, don't be weird about it. Like, if your characters are like in a relationship, or they're dating, or they're married, or they're flirting with each other, I'm not going to say like start hitting up each other's DMs and like trying to rizz each other up, but like have conversations about like not just what you would talk about in character, but also as if you were characters. What were you doing a week before the game started? What were you doing a year before the game started? As you explained it, I like this idea. It would be like an indie show, but more dynamic. And that's the goal, right? The goal would be, here's a really important moment. Here's just kind of busy work getting to the next really important moment. Then here's busy work to another really important moment. And then maybe it's a very short line to the next very important moment, and a short line to the next very important moment, and then a really long line to the next really important moment. So this is episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, episode 5, episode 6. Boom. You don't have to, like, you just give like a brief, like 5-minute summary, 5-minute summary, maybe a 30-second summary because it's all happening sequentially. Maybe a 30-second summary because it's all happening sequentially. Maybe this is another 5-minute summary. That's a time skip of 2 years in universe. And then you can tell much more flexible stories with that. The issue with this is that, again, this is pretty firmly placing it being a show over it being a game. Which I would never do this to someone without them explicitly buying into that beforehand. Because when I have someone sit down at my table and run a game for them, I want them to have fun. When I'm running a production and I'm putting on a show, I want it to be entertaining to an audience. These are not the same thing, although they are generally related. Physical or psychological proximity between people. Thank you for expanding my vocabulary. Yeah, propinquity is two people that are close together, either physical or psychological proximity. Generally, that thing where like you start liking someone more, the more you interact with them, even if you don't like have a crush on them or you don't get along very well, you are generally going to build a rapport with them purely by interacting with them, purely by seeing their face, hearing their voice, and speaking with them. That is why coworker relationships tend to be so common, is if you're spending 8 hours a day with someone 5 days a week for 4 months, you're going to be more inclined to either develop a crush on them, become friends with them, or at the very least, tolerate them more than everyone else, right? Imagine players getting into a noodle incident and not being explained in the recap. And that is the kind of stuff where like, I love it in a show where there's a noodle incident. I love it when there's characters did X, they're now proceeding to Y. Doesn't Y remind you of that time we X'd? Yeah, X was crazy. And then they move on. It's not explained. And then the audience is like, what was X? What happened with X? And then the players are just like, man, X, that brings me back. Oh man, it's been so long since X. And like just continually referencing the noodle incident. It's so silly. So a noodle incident is based on a Calvin and Hobbes panel where it's the idea of a reference to an event that is never depicted or explained on page, but is referenced as being a very important thing or a very notable thing. So for instance, in Calvin and Hobbes, I think the origin of it was just like Calvin's mom made some comment about him well, after Calvin did the noodle incident, and he's like, come on, that was one time. And it's never explained what the noodle incident was, but it was something so big that's being held over him. In my novel that I'm writing, or that I'm editing at this point, there's kind of a noodle incident. It is explained a bit. It's constantly referenced that Moloch, one of the main characters, hates lizards. And the details are unclear, but years ago, back when Moloch and Instrid were adventuring, Moloch got eaten, like actually straight up like in the throat of a giant lizard. And so Instrid constantly teases her about it. Moloch constantly hates lizards. Like, there's multiple references to her being like, never again. Like, I hate lizards. I'm never going to deal with that again. And it's just like, okay, you got almost eaten one time. And Moloch's like, I was not almost eaten. I was in its throat. I was eaten. And so like, that's the kind of thing where that's not a noodle incident because it is explained, but it is the kind of deal where, something that happened off screen is never depicted on screen, is never really explained too well detail on screen, and is just referenced. Yeah, Black Widow and Hawkeye from Budapest. Listen, if you ever have an action film and something happened in Budapest or Prague, these are the two where like characters being introduced and they introduce themselves by saying, oh, remember that time back in Prague? Like that's how it is. Hot take, 2 players playing rivals should fist fight until knockout IRL. Disagree. 2 players that are playing rivals should do 2 activities that they bet on. And one of them is where, like, and they each get to choose. So if one of them is really good at Magic the Gathering, they can play like a single, like, one-on-one, like, standard game of Magic. And then if one of them is really good at basketball, they play they play a game of basketball. And I feel like you need to be like, okay, $10 to whoever wins. So you play a game of Magic. The person who chose Magic probably wins. And then you play a game of basketball, and the person who chose basketball probably wins. Net loss, $0. No one lost any money. But they both are now like, really? Why'd you pick basketball of all things? You know I suck at basketball. Yeah, I wanted to win. What do you mean you wanted to win? We're supposed to be like having fun here. Yeah, of course I'm having fun. I was winning basketball. Yeah, well, you were winning at Magic. Okay, well, you gave me your spare deck, and your spare deck sucked. And now you have bickering. Now you have bantering. Now you have competition. And the crazier thing is the person who played Magic the Gathering also really enjoys basketball. They win at both things. Now you have an inferiority complex. You have like, well, you probably shouldn't have chosen basketball then. What are you clearly were practicing. I wasn't doing anything. And then you have banter, you have a relationship. And like, yeah, maybe one of them, like one of them loses $20, right? You don't have to do that. It could be buy them a soda. It could be get them a beer. Like it could be hand them a snack. But you have some kind of cost to losing that is very low consequence. And it just gets you in the mindset of, I don't like you. And then the other person being like, well, yeah, you don't like winning. So guess you wouldn't like winners. And then suddenly you have a relationship. You have building, right? What if those two activities represent two events in the story too? And they can bicker about those. And that would be cool. Like, for instance, you have an intellectual character and you have a very physical character that are rivals. You play chess and you have an arm wrestle contest, right? Probably whoever's smarter is going to win chess. Probably whoever's stronger is going to win the arm wrestle. And then in game, you can translate that as we had a trial of wits and I beat you. We had a trial of strength and I beat you. We had a fist fight and I knocked you out. We were just trapped in a puzzle and I'm the one that got us out. However, I waited to watch you squirm because you couldn't figure it out. And like, boom, history, relationships, actual emotional investment that you're not faking. And then suddenly anyone watching that, including the other players, can be invested. And now I will say, this is not always necessary. I have had times where, for instance, when I was running Vampire, one of my players was playing she was playing a Tremere, and so she was playing a Tremere, and she's a fledgling. She very recently turned, and her parents, she had a bad relationship with them. I didn't know what her relationship with her parents were. And they go to visit her parents because they're worried about her parents being targeted by an enemy. And so they all sit down at her parents' place and she starts arguing with her mom. And so I, as her mom, am arguing back. And then she randomly brings up like how her dad is always drinking. So apparently her dad's an alcoholic. And like she was like getting kind of heated. And I responded as her mother, in also raising her voice and kind of like in the, I'm not yelling, I'm just talking at the same volume as you are. And like we were going back and forth. And then she started shouting at me. And the other players at this point literally hugged each other. And like we're eating snacks like popcorn and watching this go as we were having like nose to nose yelling at each other as we were playing an argument of this newly turned fledgling arguing with her mom. And it was very fun. It was very interesting. And it was a very like narratively satisfying moment that the other players were like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And that had no lead up. I didn't know anything about the parents before that point, except that she didn't really have a good relationship with them, right? So like you don't need that, but generally I found that is an anomaly, right? CAIN. Want to hear some history of my CAIN setting? Born of Sin. It's been 2 hours, oh my gosh. Despite its European origins, CAIN has expanded far beyond its operational constraints from its founding in 1684. It spent multiple decades attempting to construct a unified front across a then divided Europe, during which it fractured from a strictly Catholic organization into a non-denominational pan-Christian organization. After establishing monastic orders across Northern Africa, Asia Minor, and the Near East, it began adopting local customs for ease of operations before officially incorporating Judaism and then Islam into its dogma. After political upheavals in the latter half of the 18th century, this little thing called the American Revolution, CAIN successfully established itself in the New World and enjoyed significant expansion throughout the early 19th century. This was followed by a trans-Pacific expansion into East Asia during the mid-19th century, the Opium Wars. By the end of the 19th century, CAIN was established and connected enough it could follow European powers into sub-Saharan Africa, the scramble for Africa, while simultaneously expanding into Oceania and the rest of Asia. CAIN continued to recognize, incorporate, and operate within the tenets of a multitude of religions and cultures as it shifted into a secular organization. Different regions emphasized their local customs, where standardized terminology is often substituted for more appropriate language. Authority encourages such practices so long as clarity is ensued. Note: CAIN recognizes that its history is one of relying on the evils of humanity for its own expansion. Its official stance is, it is the responsibility of that born of sin to eradicate sin. Was her dad an alcoholic IRL, bro? In real life, she did not have a good relationship with her parents, and I think there may have been a bit of catharsis there for her. I think it may have been a little bit of her just like actually venting a little bit, but I just took it and I ran with it, right? So, this is what I was talking about earlier, where put a pin in it, take out that pin now. The pin has been unpinned. I added more like historical influences. So for instance, it started in 1684. It's called CAIN. There's a very Catholic inspiration. So my assumption, started in Europe. And then it's also Hermetic orders, which was very European. And then I'm like, okay, I think it makes sense that it started expanding into Europe. It started Catholic and then kind of broke into just a Christian organization, because like, how do you get on the side of Eastern Europe if you're not East Orthodoxy? Well, you just absorb Eastern Orthodoxy into your dogma. And then all across the Mediterranean, North Africa, Asia Minor, which is like Turkey, the Near East, which is a archaic term for the Middle East, although I think it's still sometimes used. It brought in Judaism and Islam because those are non-Christian religions that are still tied to Christianity. So I felt that was a very natural jump to being like, it's from strictly Catholic to all of Christianity to all of the, is it Abrahamic faiths? I know that there's like Judeo-Christian Islamic, and then there's Abrahamic, and one of them is apparently not kosher to say. One of them is not cool to say. I think it's Abrahamic is the good one. Me and my besties have like 20 different noodle incidents. I can just say West is left and we both laugh. Oh my gosh. Then they have an argument while sober and that same argument while drunk and arrive at the same conclusion both times. Oh my gosh. I just thought about something. Vampire the Masquerade's corners, touchstones, I assume. No matter how much the player protect them, will die before them, so they're doomed to lose their humanity. Yes, they are. Correct. That is the inevitable. That is the downward spiral. And then once you lose your touchstone, you will have to make a new one. I'm glad that there's an acknowledgement of how CAIN spread primarily through imperialism. Yeah, and this is like an acknowledgement of that without hyper-focusing on it. And also, it's like, it is the responsibility of those born of sin to eradicate sin. I like the idea that CAIN basically capitalized off of, but was not responsible for imperialism. Right? I think keep it light for the sake of game brevity, yeah. Goofy fact, I didn't know what Abrahamic faiths were before discovering SCP. That's really funny. So yeah, I like the idea that CAIN as an organization is basically what it's called in the Western world, but in the Eastern world, it's called something completely different. In Sub-Saharan Africa, it's called something completely different. In Oceania and Sea, it's completely different. So I like the idea that even though it started as a Eurocentric organization, it recognizes it is not viable to just have one dogma across the entire world for no reason other than, well, yes, it is weird to like have like wear habits and cassocks and go around like downtown New York City. It's not like out of nowhere, where like a Buddhist monk's robes would make more sense in, for instance, like Japan. So I wanted to acknowledge real world historical influence without again, like I didn't want to like be insensitive. I didn't want to like say like, oh, this is all really cool stuff that's awesome and amazing. I like the idea that CAIN is like, yeah, this happened. It sucks. Like, we are born of sin, which is why we are the ones who eradicate it. Does CAIN uniform change? Yeah. So my thought process is, well, let me tell you. CAIN regions. CAIN operates within every nation, but is beholden to none of them. However, it still has to accommodate and adapt to local customs and regional differences across the world. In addition to being divided into branches, CAIN is also divided into regions. Such regions are heterogeneous in their own right, delineating geographic areas that each have a multitude of nations and cultures within them. They trace their roots back to CAIN's expansion throughout history, where different waves of expansion led to the establishment of facilities under vastly different conditions and agendas. Their primary function is adding clear demarcations of responsibility between different sites, with a soft secondary function of allowing for more granular adherence to local customs. Most regions have their own terminology for sin, exorcist, blasphemy, or even CAIN. There are often significant variations within a region. Notably, virtues and serif operate outside of the region structure and respond to site requests around the world. They have localized terminology to each region. So there is only one faith. However, Faith might not be called Faith in, like, when she went to Vietnam in the game that I was running, right? When she went to Vietnam, she might go by a different name representing the values of Vietnamese culture, right? Or that kind of region of the world. Because I like the idea that you're not just going to carve the world up into like 4 distinct chunks. You're not going to have like, here is Afro-Eurasia, here's the Americas, here's Oceania, and here's Antarctica. Though I do like the idea that there is differences. So the Americas, all of the Americas, like North America and South America and Greenland too, uses a Greco-alphabetic naming scheme, Site Alpha, Site Beta, all of that stuff. Europe into Northern Africa, into the Middle East, uses a NATO alphabet naming scheme, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and so on. I like the idea of East Asia, Middle Asia, Southeast Asia, and Oceania, because, like, yes, they are all different culturally. However, regionally, they are closer together, but I made China and I made India their own separate regions because each of them has over 1 billion people. I feel as though that is demanding of... Like, this is not based on nation size. This is based on population, really. So, like, the Americas, all of the Americas together is, like, I think approximately equal to, like, China's population or something like that, something crazy like that. So I like the idea that China and India, being effectively subcontinents, particularly India, have their own like regions with their own localized terminology. The issue is I don't want to get into the details of India and China and like the remainder of Asia or even Europe and Africa. Also, do I have Europe and all of Africa? I think it's all of Africa. Because I wasn't sure where to put Africa. Because I didn't know what it was closest to. And it's closest to Europe. I think Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Anyway, point being, there are very large like swaths of the world that are just divided based on region. I do not know Chinese culture enough to confidently and appropriately give them a bunch of terminology, even if it is just like very surface level. So I might just point at this and say, here's a thing in this setting. Go wild and just let you do it if you want to use this supplement. Or I might say, hey, do we have anyone in the community that is like knows about China and Chinese history, Indian culture, like Southeast Asian history, and like can give me, again, I don't want to stereotype. I don't want this to be Orientalism. I don't want this to be, I pick a thing and then suddenly like all of the East Asia and Middle Asia and Southeast Asia and Oceanic sins are called yokai because, hey, Japan is part of East Asia. I don't want to do that, you know? The Strait of Gibraltar is between Morocco and Spain. Yeah, so like, let me... This is primarily based on population size, but it is also on locations. So like my thought process is that like so like that's one, which is that's a lot, right? And then we have like I could change like Middle East to Arabian Peninsula if I do like this kind of deal. And then I have, so that's like 1, that's 2. India is its own thing. Nepal just trapped. I'm sorry, Nepal. China is its own thing. And then the remainder of this is that. And because like the thing that I want to avoid is I don't want to hit the Harry Potter problem. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Harry Potter Wizard School map. Does anyone want it? Like, does anyone know what I'm talking about? Oh, that's a tiny, tiny, tiny map. That's also a tiny, tiny, tiny map. Why are all these tiny, tiny, tiny maps? Is this a bigger, bigger, bigger map? Why the frick? Okay, fine. Yeah, so do you see a problem with this? Does anyone see any kind of problem with this? I see a problem with this. And it's localized in the fact that the author is from the UK. And the UK has its own special wizarding school. And like Europe also has... Western Europe and Eastern Europe have their own different ones, apparently. And then all of Africa, all of the North America, which also apparently includes Australia. Interesting. All of South America, all of East Asia. Jeez. Like I want to avoid this. No, so Africa does, it's just colored white. Sorry. Africa does. I was like, why does it have nothing? It's just colored white. Like, yeah, at least Africa has one, but it's like gross. So I want to avoid this. So while yes, I am like explicitly going out of my way and I'm saying like, yeah, all of the Americas is covered by one region. That's not because it's to say like Chile is the same as Mexico, is the same as Cuba, is the same as Canada. What that is to say is that's to say those are all geographically more similar than Bolivia, Nigeria, and Mongolia. Like there has to be some kind of difference between Indonesia and Sudan in terms of just like locality. So where do you draw those lines? And I think it's mostly based off of just like rough geographic regions. Look, JK was a bad road voter and a writer in a law, which she was. And she still is. And that's why most Harry Potter stuff that's come out since has sucked. Yeah, they gerrymandered magic, yeah. Which is why I'm trying to be like fair, if nothing else. And I think that it's natural to look at this and be like, well, why do China and Asia? Why do China and India get their own special one? Because they have twice the population of the US. Or 3 times the population of the US in like half the space in India's case. And like, obviously, yeah, there is a huge difference between Algeria and Niger and Chad and South Sudan and Ethiopia and Angola. And I don't want to imply that they are the same or they have the same cultural roots. But they tend to be more similar than something like Tanzania and Kazakhstan, right? So I'm trying to walk the line here of how do I make it that like CAIN as it operates makes sense. Like maybe instead of Europe and Africa, like you tell me, I don't know. Would it make more sense to, instead of Europe and Africa, to have it be North America and Europe, South America and Africa? I still want it to be India and China, because I feel like India and China are large enough that they kind of deserve their own. And then the remainder of like West Asia, North Asia, Southeast Asia, and Oceania. Like I don't know if this is a better way of doing it. I'm open to changing that. My issue is this feels like why is Mexico so different from Venezuela or from Honduras or Nicaragua or Costa Rica? Like once you start doing that kind of dividing lines, like, well, yeah, this kind of makes sense because of how similar the US is to the UK. But that doesn't make a lot of much sense why Panama and Guatemala are so like just on different spheres of influence. So I don't know. I'll probably stick with what I had initially. I just wanted to get a temperature check on that. Have I considered dividing the Americas and also giving Australia and the Pacific Island their own group? A group that seems tailored for operating among a bunch of islands? I did consider that. I considered... Basically, I did consider basically China and India being their own things. That was like one of the first things I came up with, because I think that makes sense. Europe being involved with, at the very least, Northern Africa into the Middle East, right? I also like, because that's kind of like Eurasia region. I don't think that CAIN would see a significant logistical difference between operating in Mexico versus Colombia. Not because they're like culturally the same, but because they're close enough together, and the regional differences, I want to minimize as many as possible. I want there to be as few as possible. So for instance, Southeast Asia, Thailand, Cambodia, these are different than Malaysia, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea. Like, they're all separate from each other, even though geographically they're similar, or in similar spots. Myanmar is not the same place as the Philippines, even though they are much closer together than Myanmar and Oman. However, I don't want to add in like every single continent has their own one, because I feel like that gets too noodly. I feel like that gets needlessly complicated. If we're talking about a smaller setting, why not have CAIN operate locally and have other unknown orgs? Because CAIN has talked multiple times about being a global organization. I like the idea that they're a global organization. Arbitrary lines are very difficult, especially making them discrete. It'd likely be a gradient map. And that's what I'm thinking, which is why, like, who's in charge? Like, which jurisdiction is in charge of, like, the entire Middle East? Would it be, like, the European, Asia Minor, North Africa one? Would it be, like, the kind of Middle Asia one? Probably the Indian subcontinent one would be involved because they're close. Like, who is, like, Nepal would technically be in the Middle Asia one, but also, like, India and China are both right there. If there's a CAIN site right there and there's a SYN event in Nepal, surely China would send over some XOs. Global means a lot. Global does mean a lot of things. I don't know. I like the idea of CAIN being tied to every world government and being on the global sphere, but that's like saying the CAIN brand is on the global sphere, and underneath the CAIN brand, underneath the CAIN umbrella, there are different organizations that are functionally independent. The US, like the Americas branch, doesn't really talk to the Europe branch, unless the Europe branch says, hey, we just dealt with a category 7 like lord, watch out, category 7s are a thing now. Is CAIN like Coca-Cola? Yeah, basically. They have their same brand, they have their regional differences between one another, and I want it to be large enough that it's larger than a continental difference, because generally continents aren't great ways of delineating cultures. If I was doing this just general predisposition, I'd probably go a few local examples, like in Central Europe, South America, and China. Well, and that's why I just kind of want to point to where the different regions are, and then really just like not do anything with India or China or C, or like all I would focus on is the US, really. But like probably more than the US. Like I would make sites where like Site Gamma is north of Lake Superior and Lake Huron, right? Site Epsilon is in New York, right? So like I would still want to like talk about more than the US. Like there are sites in Mexico, there are sites in Cuba, like there are sites further down south that are part of the Greco alphabetic. Great Slave Lake. Ooh, don't love that. CAIN Antarctica, their motto is, it's weird we exist. That's the thing. I did consider including Antarctica. I think what it is that they just have like monitoring towards Antarctica, and they probably just have like a CAIN agent on site on the various like research facilities, because Antarctica has what? Isn't it like a double-digit number of people? Maybe low hundreds, because there's like, or I think that we're at like a couple dozen research facilities. If each research facility has between like 10 and 30 people, that would be like a couple hundred. I should make it so there's something horrible beneath the eyes. So that'd be cool. I personally, in terms of my world building, I prefer a smaller scale. That's why, even though I like how big and sprawling CAIN is, I used that as a means to hamper them. In canon, CAIN has like a dozen facilities that are all super high tech and all like a mile underground, and also exos are like monitored every single day of their life, and also there are cameras everywhere, and also there's a full team of untouchables on standby at the moment, like drop of a hat. In my setting, Site Epsilon had to wait to requisition a helicopter from a nearby site because there aren't enough helicopters in circulation between sites that Epsilon can just have one on hand. So during Resplendent Echo, when they needed reinforcements, a helicopter went to Site Epsilon and then refueled and picked up Team Gamma to go to Resplendent Echo as backup, right? There's no music? No, there's music. It's just really quiet. Let me increase the volume. I've noticed before it was a little loud in editing, so I turned it down. I have now turned it back up. CAIN might just want a base somewhere where humanity's unconscious is present but almost non-existent. Ergo, CAIN Antarctica. I mean, like, hey, maybe that's where Authority is. Right? Maybe Authority's down there. It's probably just exos deployed from southern regions. That's what my thought is. And that's why, like, obviously, if I have it like all of the Americas are one, and then, I don't know, like, there's a Sin event right here. Probably one of the like lower South American sites would send over. And basically what I want to do is I want to recognize the fact that CAIN originated as a Eurocentric organization called CAIN with Catholic imagery, and that persisted in the Western, European, and American cultures. However, in China, in India, in Japan, and Malaysia, and the Philippines, and Cambodia, and Ethiopia, and Sudan, like all of these places, it didn't do that. Seraph Station is actually a base in Antarctica where virtues are naturally that would be hilarious. That would actually kind of be hilarious. Cinnabar, what'd you delete? What'd you retract? Okay, so all the Americas are one. Okay, so and then this is where this is something I need to set up. Site Alpha, Synopsis. A group of exos known for having the lowest civilian casualty rate and lowest collateral damage of all sites in the region. This is both attracted and has been perpetuated by Faith and Absolution, who have taken an interest in the site and have made an effort to bond with every Alpha. Despite this, the number of exos on site has never exceeded the single digits, and Alphas notably have a more pessimistic outlook than most other sites. I low-key didn't know there were multiple Americas until this stream. So, North America, South America. Some people call them all one America. Some of them call them like the Americas is a continent. I always grew up with North America as one continent, South America is another continent. So this is where I have to figure out what is the proper layout for sites. So we make Site Alpha. We write a synopsis of it. Where is it located? What do they call themselves? What do gammas call them? Or maybe what's the assumption gammas have about them? What's the description about the site? What is the staff culture? What is the XO culture? And then what's something that sucks? What's something that's great? And what's something that's weird? I think every single site should have something that sucks, everything that's great about it, and something that's weird. And then some example XOs. Where example XOs, I'm not going to worry about that. The example XOs are going to be, once we're in like the final stages of this supplement, I'm going to open it up to the community, and I'm going to say, hey, give me your XOs. Give me your OCs. Restrictions based on the sites. I'm going to be like, hey, please ensure that they're all between Cat 1 and Cat 3. Please build them strictly canon. I don't want any homebrew. I don't want any of that nonsense. You can do sin marks. You can do multiple blasphemies, but please, like, the goal would be like only 1 in 4 XOs have multiple blasphemies. There's a strong culture against sin and sin marks. So please keep that in mind. And remember, these are all like background characters to supplement and support the main XOs. These are not main characters. 3 cats exactly. We got one right there with Neko. Also, Up America, Down America, Strange America, and Charm America. In theory, the Americas are not connected by land just because humanity decided to create the Panama Canal. Well, yeah, but also, have you considered that by by there not being a land connection, that's not what determines a nation. That's not what determines a continent. Let's use this Harry Potter map because this is what I had copied. Do you see this section here? And this section here? This is a Strait of Gibraltar. That's fine. But yeah, like Europe into Asia, into Africa, Afro-Eurasia, one continent. Yeah, continents are different to categorize, which are difficult to categorize, which is why it's so difficult and weird for me to be like, is it acceptable to be like, yeah, CAIN covers all of this, right? One CAIN covers all of this. Another CAIN covers, like, I feel like it would be like this. And like that. Like that. And like, I understand that sea and Oceania are completely different, but I also think that if I'm gonna like mix like Canada and Brazil with Iceland, I feel like mixing the Philippines with like Kazakhstan is also acceptable, you know? I think we should go off of tectonic plates. That would be certainly a choice. Quick question, where would the supplement be available when it's out? Probably on itch. I'm also considering, I'm going to, probably after the, like literally, no, I'm gonna record. Then I'm going to, in the Lancer channel on the Discord, I'm going to post the Kraken again, after making some changes that Glass suggested. And then I'm going to post the Kraken, the Tangle, the Stormtrooper, and the Alexander over on itch for free. Right? I could also have a North Pole region that covers... See, my issue is, like, I explicitly thought, like, hey, there's probably, like, no sites in all of Northern Canada because there's so few people that live here, right? Again, this is population oriented. It's not, like, it's not geographic oriented. Like, the Midwest has significantly fewer sites than the East and West Coast of the US, right? Because way more people live on the East and West Coast than in the Midwest. Same thing with, like, Northern Canada versus Southern Canada. That's why Greenland probably doesn't have any sites and instead relies upon sites from other continents to come over and like deal with it. Like that's the kind of mindset I'm going off of. Wait, when did I make 2 more Lancer frames? So I made a short recently where I talked about the Kraken and the Behemoth, and someone in the comments was just like, "Hey, you should post these on itch. That's where I find a lot. That's where a lot of people find homebrew." And I said, that's a good idea. So I already made the Alexander. I released it like a year ago. I made the Stormtrooper, which is an NPC template for it. And I made the Kraken Behemoth like a year ago. But I didn't do anything with them. I had some feedback to the Kraken on Discord. But the Kraken is a ranged grappler that has hacking. And so I posted it on Discord the other day. I got it torn to shreds, which is what I wanted. I wanted people who know Lancer better than I do to like look at it and say, this LL1 weapon, way too overpowered. because if you have this talent and this talent, it breaks it in this way. You should do this change so it can't do that. And like, I don't know that synergy. Sure, I'm just going to listen to you. You're a subject matter expert. The Tangle is the NPC template of the Kraken. The Behemoth is one that I have not even posted. And I'm going to basically like work on the Kraken first. I'm going to go through the Kraken. I'm going to get that done. I'm going to just basically do another pass of it on the Lancer channel in the Discord. And then once the Kraken is done, I'm going to post it. And then I'm going to post the Behemoth. The Alexander and the Prakati talent make their allies boost twice, having it's very good. Sure. Poor CAIN Iceland having to deal with the Greenland. Out of curiosity, would you like an LCP to be made for them? I would love that. And if someone makes an LCP for them, I would absolutely post it on the itch. Like someone suggested like, hey, could you post the LCP for the Alexander on itch? Right? That would be easier for people. And I said, sure. So I've heard this, that apparently PilotNet or maybe it's like CompCon or whatever has a policy. You're not allowed to make an LCP unless you have the explicit permission of the author. You have permission to make LCPs of the frames I release. Just please, if they're behind a paywall, wait until they're done with the paywall, which like with the Alexander, I uploaded it on Patreon and then a month later, I made it for free. That's my main ask. And then also I will ask, like, if I update it, like, please update it because I don't want an LCP to be out of date. What does LCP stand for? It stands for something. All I know is that it stands, or I think it's Lancer Character Profile? Lancer Content Passage. That's what it is. Lancer Content Passage package, and it is a downloadable file that you can upload to CompCon, and your homebrew can be added to what is widely considered to be the most useful and most accessible Lancer tool. Liquid crystal splay. I thought you were saying something very different there for a second, but no. Okay, it's been 2.5 hours. I need to go. Oh no, the tectonic plates are similar to J.K. Rowling's map. No. So I was going to be like, hey, let's work on like fixing out the formatting for the site alpha stuff. I've shared what I have thus far. I also have like the stuff that I wrote before, like Code Pink and whatever, but I did some mining off stream. What are your thoughts? Honest thoughts on this as a setting supplement for CAIN? What are your actual honest thoughts on like implementation of history, the different site types, my idea of the different regions? We went into too many different tangents. Listen, do you come to my streams to hear about what the like channel title is? Do you want to hear about what the stream title is, or do you want to hear about tangents? It's ending. Oh no, nearly. It's crazy to me that you didn't have the Prakati talent in mind when making the Alexander because the levels are named Veni Vidi Vici. See, Beluga, you say that? I didn't know what the Prakati talent was because I don't have any book outside of the core book. So like I posted it the first time and people were like, this is just like the Prakati talent. And I'm like, brother, I don't know what that is. You're asking me to accommodate a talent that is in a book I don't own. And so like, obviously like, it's good that people are bringing that up. It's good that people are pointing out, hey, this talent makes it XYZ. But also like, Lancer is one of those types of games where the stuff that people like bring up most of the time are, if you look at this long rim talent, it clearly breaks the frame. And I'm like, okay, I wasn't designing it with long rim in mind. I don't know anything about long rim. Veni Vidi Vici, said by Caesar. Wouldn't it be best to remove the mention of absolution and alpha since you don't want to include external homebrew? See, I considered that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to Svelte and I'm going to be like, hey, hi. And then they're going to be like, idiot. And then I'm going to be like, stupid. And then they're going to be like, you've passed the vibe check. You are allowed to include Harpocrates dossier stuff in your supplement. I don't want to, I think in the lore stuff, I'm going to include Harp Doc. And maybe if I read Glory Unto Them, I'll include Glory Unto Them stuff in Harp Doc, in the lore section. Mechanically, no. Mechanically, I'm going to keep everything divorced. But I think if this is my CAIN setting, I have included stuff from the Harp Doc. I have included a spider in my hunt. I have included Husk, the blasphemy, in my game. So I think that it's like, it would be kind of inauthentic to strip that just for the sake of like not including other people's homebrew. That said, mechanically, yes, I want to avoid including other people's homebrew. I don't want distortions based off of other homebrew blasphemies. One, that would get way too crazy. Two, I don't want to step on their toes. But I think references to homebrew, particularly if I clear it with Svelte, would be acceptable in the lore section. No notes except small proofreading nitpick. Is not trying to be, could be, is not trying to be. I mean, like, that's something where that's personal preference. To put it bluntly, this supplement is completely non-canonical, is not trying to be. Like, that's not grammatically incorrect, but I see what you mean. What was the Husk reference? If it's possible to reread briefly. No, so not in here. The Husk reference is in my game that I'm running. One of the XOs, she hollowed, she lost her psyche, and she came back. She lost her jaunt blasphemy and gained the Husk blasphemy. That's not mentioned in here anywhere. The spider I ran is not referenced in here anywhere. But I did run a hunt that involved a spider, which is from Harp Doc. I need to show up to more streams. This was fun. That's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing people being like, I really should show up to more of these. They're so much fun. And it's always really humbling because I'm just like, I just am rambling. Ramblers, let's get rambling. I think it's interesting. I really like the region stuff, but not enough pimps. Oh my gosh. N asked this question to see if it would work. Do you think you'll still be streaming after 10 years? No. Like, I have two answers, or I have three answers to that, really. I have three ways that I can see that going. Like the 10-year question. Do I still see myself streaming in 10 years? I think if I find success, I would love to. But I'm not going to bank on the fact of like hitting it big and being at the point where not only like I make money from streaming to support myself, but money enough to sustain myself for the future and for 10 years in the future. I would love to. I would love to continue doing that. I'd love to keep making YouTube videos. I'd love to expand. I'd love to step back from being all hands on deck and like get on an editor. Honestly, I think before an editor, I think I need an agent. I think I need someone to be reaching out to sponsors and to reach out to other organizations and like work with TTRPG devs, to work with other VTubers. I think like I need that kind of external support first, and I would love to work for that. I would love to keep streaming in 10 years. I would love to keep making videos in 10 years, but like I just might not find that success, and that's okay. Or maybe I get tired of it. Maybe I get burnt out. Maybe I have another career path that opens up to me and that like I need to capitalize on, or I'll lose it forever, and I choose that over streaming, which I see myself more as a YouTuber than a streamer, which is kind of silly because I am streaming 3 times a week anyway. I can be both things, but I see myself more a video editor, content creator than anything. And like, maybe I won't be here in 10 years. Who knows what will happen to me? I don't know if I'm going to be here in 10 years. So that might be a situation where like, I'd love to keep streaming. I tried to keep streaming and I just didn't make it. I love showing up to Aero streams. It's always fun. Oh, man, Moth, thank you. This is the first one I stayed up. I stayed for most of this. This was the first one I stayed for most, so I imagine I'll show up more in the future. I don't really watch streams. I don't either. I'm not a big stream watcher, though there are a couple people who like have on in the background consistently. I like having them as background noise. I feel like my streams are very interactive. My streams are very much a stream where you come here because you want to chat, more so than you come here because you want background noise. I think a lot of people do want background noise. I think a lot of people like me as second monitor content, phone content, whatever. But I do think a lot of people come here because they want to hear me ramble about the thing they brought up. And I am enabling terrible behavior. Darn, that's sad. I mean, yeah. Like, listen, if you ask a painter, do you see yourself painting in 10 years? And they say, yes, absolutely, always. I would never do anything but. I think that's inauthentic. I think that if they're struggling financially, and that if they're not getting any success in the painting field, I think that it is a reasonable conclusion to say, in 10 years, they might not be painting. Maybe they'll be working in the painting industry, not as a artist themselves, but as someone supporting artists. Maybe they have a completely different industry. Maybe they're still painting, but they shift back from doing it full time to doing it part time to doing it as a hobby. Maybe maybe they change their state of living significantly. Maybe they go from painting to drawing. Instead of being a painter, they're a sketcher. And in the same way, like maybe instead of being a streamer in 10 years, I'll be something else content creator. Maybe I'll go full tilt author. I love writing, right? Pleasant surprise to catch this while I'm working today. The stream is real nice because you're small enough that there's a conversation between chat and you can go consistently. Yeah. Yeah, it's something where I like to think that even as the chat has grown over time, we went from like single digit number of people to we'll hit like average of like 30. Sometimes average of like 20, sometimes like max of like 19, and sometimes we're hitting at like 40 plus people the entire stream. It's variable. I do think that this channel is at the size where it's kind of perfect for a conversation between us. Because even if you personally don't want to talk, there's probably at least 3 or 4 other people who have active thoughts on the conversation, and I can't shut up. I really struggle at not talking. So unless I'm like working on something, you've seen me on programming streams, you've seen me on TTRPG dev streams. I tend to kind of like clam up because I'm focused on writing. I'm not focused on talking, and that's a big struggle that I have, is where I'm not actually entertaining. I am simply being productive. And this really is like a binary switch that I have in my brain. I can either be entertaining or I can be productive. As you saw today, very much not on the productive side. Tomorrow is going to be a Twitch stream where my goal is to be more productive. I'm going to be programming. Unless we want me to do a pivot and I can do like Vermintide. I love this channel because it's all of my niche interests in one package instead of having to check 6 different websites. Aw. I consistently show up to Arrow streams because you do interact. It'll be interesting to see what happens as your channel grows more and people are watching and commenting. I've already hit the point, and I talked about this before, where for voiceovers in particular, I can't consistently respond to comments. So I just stopped trying. Like I can't respond to all the voiceover comments. I'll generally, like, over the first couple hours, I'll keep an eye out. But generally, like, the main comments I respond to are on my live streams, on my posts, on my TTRPG videos, on my Arrow answers. Like, that's the kind of stuff I will like heart your comment, maybe give you a response. But even then, like, we're at the point where a lot of videos, there are just too many comments for me to respond to. And I don't think we're at the point where I'm going to run into that with chat. I don't think that we're going to run into that point anytime soon. And I think, like, I have seen channels that have like 300 like viewers where the chat is incredibly chill. You can just chat, you can just talk, you can have a conversation, right? And maybe that's what we'll be. Or maybe we'll be a community where we hit 50 CCV and no one can shut up and it's a chaotic mess, which we don't need more of that here. I'm actually cursed, by the way, if I don't discover at least one thing I didn't know before about World of Darkness every day. I'll just die on the spot, 12 a.m. sharp. Ah, yeah. Cursed by CAIN. Do you see yourself switching to responding members, chatters only? If I get to the point where, like, I have too many messages, like if I had Doug chat, yeah, right. Doug is a streamer who often has like 4K CCV. He's a very chaotic chat that loves spamming. They love memes. They love jokes. And so his main thing is he has TTS, which is like $3. You pay $3, you give a TTS message, and he'll usually respond to it. And sometimes he can't even respond to that because he'll have like 20 TTS messages. And like he'll read random messages from chat occasionally. RT Game is a streamer and he has like 2 million subscribers on YouTube. He similarly will occasionally read chat, but mostly focuses on the game and his own commentary. I am a yapper. I think ideally I'd go like the Giga route, which is just kind of raw dog it. She'll have like 1,300, 2,000 CCV, and her chat's like moving at a speed where if you're a speed reader and you're a good talker, you can just kind of like be on top of it. And I think that would be my goal. I think my goal would be to just kind of like just raw dog it, just continue chatting. I'd probably make a lot of money if I did members only, but that also feels kind of scummy, at least at this point, where like I feel as though if you come here because you want to chat and then I make it a paywall, that feels like I'm excluding people from my community on the basis of finance, which is not something I find very cool. Those streamers scare me as a dyslexic person. Yeah. This channel is what got me into CAIN, which I really like now because it's a cool setting. Yeah. So like maybe I'll do a paid option at some point, but like my ideal would be I have a community, which I already have. It's just a matter of scale. That is active enough I can have a conversation while not being so hyperactive that I can't have a conversation. How hard can I backhand? Do you want to find out? Like, what? How much more ranting was there after the 120-minute mark? 50 more minutes. I plan on having Friday streams end after like 2 hours. This has been 3 hours. Paying the bills and taking advantage of the audience are two different things. Yeah, and I mean, that's something where I've been kind of open about this. Like, I suck at exploiting my audience, and like I say that, and it sounds tongue in cheek, but like no, actually, like I do suck at exploiting you. Like I just hate asking for money. I don't even ask you to subscribe or like or anything, because I find that really annoying. As a viewer, I find channels that are like, hey, smash that like button and like, remember, hit that subscribe, ring that bell so you get notified. Like all of that's like really annoying. So I just don't do it. And so all of the growth I've had has been like, I haven't done YouTube paid promotions. I haven't done ads. I haven't asked you to subscribe. The closest I've gotten is at the end of long form, I have a little title card that gives you the option to subscribe. And, when we have like a sub goal, I am just like, hey, we have like 1 month to get like 7,000 more subscribers. Make sure to send it to your friends. Haha. I love error rants. Thank you. Surprisingly few questions this time. I know, because we were focused on CAIN and pimp the backhanding. Although obviously, if you have more questions, even though the Q&A chat is over, feel free to ask them now. I simply cannot afford to pay to subject you to all of my terrible puns and errant thoughts. Take that for good or ill. Honestly, like, I do feel sometimes that I should be more willing to put my business sense first. The issue is, one of my main goals is to create a good viewing experience and to create a community that is the best it can be, really. And gatekeeping that with money is not the way to do that. So even though I, as someone with like business experience, sales experience, account management experience, look at this and I say, Arrow, what are you doing? You could be so much more profitable if you did this or that, or even if you just did this. And my response is, well, Arrow, that would be a poor viewer experience. That would lower the quality of the viewer experience. And it's just like, yeah, I could probably do to treat this a bit more like a job. Why did I play evil music when saying business? Don't worry about it. Part of my love of these streams is there are recognizable recurring chatters. Yeah. And like, I like to recognize that without being weirdo. I like to recognize chatters who show up consistently, and I try to incorporate people regardless of how long you've been in the community, because I'm a pretty firm believer of like, just because you've been here for a year doesn't mean I'm going to like you. and doesn't mean that you are more entitled to the space than someone that got here earlier today, right? If you're a jerk, you're a jerk. If you're cool, you're cool, right? I think that seniority is kind of dumb. I think that cultures persist by veterancy, but I don't think that that is inherently a virtue. As much as I believe that, like, yeah, like, do honor your elder, like, respect the elderly kind of deal, I do also think that there's a hyper orientation around, I've been here longer, so I'm better than you. Pimp the backhanding expansion book for CAIN isn't. Listen, everyone keeps saying April 1st. I'm the sort that just, like, for Pride Month, I would absolutely remake, like, I would remake Pimp the Backhanding, but it's all lesbians. No, we're not making jokes about abuse. We don't make jokes like that here. It's a devil's bargain, yeah. Do I feel like do I feel that I would do ad reads for the RPGs you're interested in? Yeah. Like my thing with sponsors and ads, I've taken sponsor before. I've taken Homie the Dude, who they reached out to me back when I was much smaller, and they were just like, hey, do you want to be an affiliate with us? Where for the Wandering Tavern and Sky Zephyrs. Sky Zephyrs is a D&D 5e supplement about making skyships, and the Wandering Tavern is a system agnostic setting inspired by Studio Ghibli, where it's a giant flying island that has a, like, huge city on it. And, like, you can explore it. It's very whimsical and whatever. And you can play in Vampire the Masquerade or Lancer or D&D 5e or Drawsteel or Call of Cthulhu even. And then I supported them on their Kickstarter for Scorched Basin. And I made videos about it. I did ad reads. I was like, hey, this is a sponsored thing. If you use my affiliate code, I will get kickback. It will support an indie dev that is a family-owned father and son business in the third-party TTRPG space. That's awesome. Yuri the Tox King. No, isn't culture persisting by veterancy a theme of your CAIN game? It is. Why do you think I love it so much? It's a theme of my CAIN game. It's also a theme of my werewolf game that I'm running for my roommate that I haven't touched in a couple of months. I love the idea of a culture outliving its members. And, like, maybe that's just my unique terror management theory. Maybe I'm so scared of not leaving a legacy that, like, I have this obsession with culture, like making a culture that outlives me and outlives the members that was a part of it, and trying to build that for the future. Or maybe I just think it's cool. I don't know. But yeah, so I actually still have an affiliate link with Homie and the Dude, and you can still find it on my channel. I think it's in the description of all of my long form videos. And it says, like, hey, you get 20% off your purchase, and you get a kickback to me. Something that I actually really appreciated is that not only did Homie and the Dude, not only are they awesome, and I genuinely believe in the supplements they make. I made a video talking about one of the NPCs they made for Sky Zephyrs, which was City Boy Thonk, and I made a whole video just ranting about how much I loved him. Not only do I think that they're legitimately good products that are relevant to you, that I think that you would want because you presumably know D&D 5e, you like settings and TTRPG books that are useful and have cool music and art attached with them. Also, they have stuff like, they have no AI in their work. It's all human made. They, for the Scorched Basin, refused to spend any money on large advertising firms and only spread it by word of mouth content creators. They something else that was really cool is when they were changing their affiliate link, they're just like, hey, I'm pretty sure I can talk about this. I'm pretty sure I can talk about this. When they were changing the affiliate link, initially it was 10% off and I get 10%. and they said, hey, we want this to be a better deal for our content creators. Oh, we're going to add 10% to this. You get the choice. Do you want it 10% off? So it's a 20% discount for the purchaser, or do you want that 10% to go to you? And I was just like, make it higher discount. So now my affiliate code is 20% off all products, and I get a 10% kickback, right? Or like around that. I don't know if it's the exact number. It's been a while. Allegedly, don't sue me, please. But that was very cool of them to be like, hey, what do you want it to be? Do you want this to go to you or to your audience? And my answer was like, I want it to go to my audience, which I was very appreciative of. I think it is beautiful for culture to continue to benefit those that come after. Ooh, I've been working for a bit. Did you make the music use as background music in streams? So the music that you're listening to right now, I made. So I made this track. I made this track. I made this track. And I made several others, much like the pause menu theme. I also made that. And yeah, the pause menu theme was not, but the one you're listening to right now is inspired by the Idol. The one you were listening to before was the Centipede. The one that was like rock was inspired by the Hound. And then I have another one inspired by the Ochre. And they're all inspired by Sins. And the music software that I have, Cakewalk by BandLab, I think shut down and rebranded as Sonar, and I haven't checked it out since. My goal is to make a theme for all of the core 6 sins, make a theme for CAIN as an organization, and then just like release them as a mini album, because I think that'd be cool. And like, if I make my own music, no one can sue me. And I used to exclusively use my own music in like editing. I have since begun using other sourced music as background for like shorts and stuff, because using the same 5 tracks over and over, I think hurt the quality. And obviously, like, yes, it is safer for me to just only use my own stuff. But generally, like, if I'm editing a short and I use a 5-second snippet of a Persona song, that's usually under fair use. The theme for CAIN would be like elevator music. I was thinking more low droning strings with the distant onset of dread. The calm before the storm. And a slightly inquisitive nature to it. With a melody that kind of bounces around in a seeking for information way. Spider theme win. I don't have music software. My music software, I have not been able to access it for a couple months now because they shut it down. And I don't know if Sonar costs money. I will have to check it out, but I am not thrilled by what happened to that. So I have not been able to make another theme for months now. And I made the Ogre and the CAIN and the Hound themes like a year and a half ago, and then I made the Centipede theme like a year ago. I want to make a really grimy trap beat for the Toad. I think that would be really fun, and I would love to have remixed orchestration for the Lord. Would I do a theme for like the Spider and for the Butcher? Maybe, probably not, but maybe. Yes, just let me turn up the distant onset of dread plugin on Ableton. I think I could see CAIN's theme being a tense sounding jazzy sort of piano. That would be awesome. Ableton would definitely have that plugin. Yeah, so like I just don't have a music program at the moment. And I have not been looking for one because I've been so busy with like Xeneolithic. And now that Xeneolithic is done, I gave myself like 1 week of what was supposed to be downtime, and then it wasn't even downtime for me. And now I'm working on the CAIN supplement. And I have the girlfriend video that I still am working on and should be out next week. And today's Friday, and if I want it out next week, oh, criminy. So yeah, my plan is only the core 6. I like certain themes I want to completely redo. I actually really like the Idol theme, and I like the Centipede theme. I think the ogre theme is too atmospheric. I don't think it's music enough. And the hound theme, I think I could do better. I don't dislike the hound theme. I think I could do better though. And I tried reworking the hound theme, and I just like I couldn't fix it. And then the program shut down. You think that BandLab still is a free to use DAW? And that might be Sonar. I just don't know what Sonar is. That reminds me of the Soon from Epic where Zeus says, "You or your crew." Unfortunately, the literal translation of CAIN into musical form is tiptoe through the tulips and no one knows why. Oh my gosh. But I would love to just make like the grimiest nastiness, like nastiest like Toad trap beat. I think that would be really fun. Because that's just like the vibes I get. Mother, maybe? I still don't know GFF 3. I forgot about Centipede, my favorite sin based on my least favorite animal ever. Woo! I guess you could say that the hound is dogging you. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of the hound theme I made. Like, I don't think I dislike it. I still like it. I still like it enough that I haven't trashed it. But I don't like it enough that I've like used it consistently, and I'm kind of embarrassed about it. You know? It's the deal where like, I don't even think I've improved that much in music making because I haven't done that much in composition since then. But just like, I just feel like I could do better. You're still so sad there isn't a symbol emoji? But how fine are you receiving Games Freaks 3 on itch for content review? Or at least try to add it as an expansion for distortions. So Games for Freaks Volume 3 is gonna come out for free like in the next month. Games for Freaks Volume 4, submissions closed like May 12th. And I imagine within a month of that, he planned on dropping it. And even if he got delayed, that's within a month of now, right? So Games for Freaks Volume 3, gonna come out for free soon. Games for Freaks Volume 4, GFF 4. That's rough, buddy. Oh my gosh. GFF 4, this is one where even if someone gifted it to me, I would be very thankful. I'd be very appreciative. I would still keep my eyes closed and I would not look over it. Maybe if I got gifted it, I would record my reaction to it, upload it on Patreon, and then release it for free afterwards. But I like going over it live on stream. So obviously, like, I like not paying for it, but folks are kind enough that I'm sure that if I asked very kindly, at least one person would send it to me because they'd want to see me talk about it. I don't feel comfortable doing a full read through of a paid product and then releasing it for free, because that could get into weird trouble where you have to pay, or you can pay, or you can just without paying get the product for free. I wouldn't want to do that to Tom Bloom. And that's like, I haven't done that with Girlframe either, even though I have it all recorded, is because I'm a little worried about posting that. So yeah, even if someone did gift it to me, I would probably just skip it until GFF 5 came out. Yeah, GFF 4 is coming out like within the next month is my assumption. You need to read GFF 2? Yeah. Yeah, reading GFF 2 was fun. I liked seeing drifters. And then being able to read all the Malgas stuff was also really cool. Hour-long video of Arrow reading silently with an occasional moment of, oh, that's fun. Yes. Yeah, so there's no actual visual of it. It's just me reading. It's just Oh, wow. That's crazy. Wait, seriously? Oh my. I gotta write that down. Wow. But then that... Okay, this is incredible. This is amazing. And then like that's just what it is. Oh, that is just ASMR. Yeah. I love drifters. They're so silly. This is quality content we love. So long as we have 3 tangents, it will be an S tier stream. What do you mean 3 tangents? We had 3 nested tangents earlier. A tangent into a tangent into a tangent, where we stepped back through the tangents one by one. Yes, I'm quite fond of line 4, sentence 2 on page 14. Yes, quite. I'm gonna wrap up. It has been 3 hours. I need to record a voiceover for tomorrow. I need to update Alexander. I need to maybe buy Darktide if my friend wants to play Darktide. I don't know. Don't forget the occasional sound of turning a page, even though you're reading a PDF. Yeah. So, please hold. No, I don't have a please hold on the screen. Oh no. Make sure to hell hydrate after stream and snack on something. Oh yeah, I should probably eat food. I had egg on rice earlier. I'm fine. The nested tangents make the stream triple S tier. I mean, I guess if it's nested, like it's an S tier in an S tier in an S tier. Thank you so much for swinging by. Tomorrow, my initial plan was to program, and I have been enjoying programming. I will be honest, views go down when I program, which is very funny to me. I could like play Vermintide. I could play like a game. Y'all let me know in the Discord if you have any thoughts on if you want me to like continue grinding programming, or if you want me to play games on Twitch. Thank you so much for swinging by. I appreciate it. You swinging by as well. Next week is girlfriend video. Come hell or high water. And hopefully neither. What am I programming? On Twitch, I'm programming a platonic dating sim, where it is a visual novel where you are a game master joining a new TTRPG group, and you have 4 sessions to get to know the players and to get them to like you before there's a con where you need to find a con buddy. So the whole deal is that it's like your classic conception of you need to find a date for prom, but platonic with an option for romance if you're so inclined. So the idea is that you're running TTRPG sessions, and that alters how they feel about you. And then based on how you run the game, if you run a game they like, they're going to like you more. Go eat, you dongus. Whoa. Maybe a game of Vermintide as a treat, then that could be fun. A game of Vermintide and then we swap over coding. Okay, take care of yourselves. Have a lovely day, morning, night, evening, afternoon, whenever. And take care of yourselves. You should watch programming streams so I can make stupid visual novel ideas. Listen, it's Ren'Py. Ren'Py is the programming software. Ren'Py is the visual novel software. Programming is like watching a Call of Cthulhu cultist drawing incomprehensible, mind-breaking geometrics. That is true.